Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wrestling RHAPup podcast. I'm your host, Mari Forth, and with me, as always, my co host, my tag team partner, the Kyrie Sane to my Asuka, Mr. Matt Scott. Matt, how's it going?
Wonderful. What a tag team. What a
I
tag
miss
team.
them. I had to put them here because I really do miss them. The draft really has me thinking of all the people we haven't seen recently. So I was like, I gotta put them here. Uh,
Gone too soon is what I say about them. I wish they were
I
still around.
know.
They were really fun and exciting and nobody had problems with them. And of course they
Exactly.
couldn't last, but
And Kyrie left on a really good note, so we
totally
can always see her back. From what I understand, it's just she wanted to go, go home, And Asuka is
relatable.
telling you, Asuka is still, from what we know, nursing an injury to her arm, but like we've been pointing out, she's been so entertaining on her Twitter. So hopefully we see them soon back in action,
Yeah,
either wherever they're at.
hopefully we do. And I will at some point. Okay, well, I'm just gonna say plugging her Twitter now up front. Just
It's
go
so
at
good.
WWE Asuka. Insanely interesting. All the memes. She's there for the people like you and me who just like
Yeah,
to laugh, and that's what wrestling is all about. Check out the
it's
YouTube
so
version,
funny.
by the way, right now if you just kind of
Yeah,
want to see some of the memes. There's this one of she okay, wait, this is not a meme,
that
but
is just her
she's
birthday
a
cake.
picture of her holding a delicious cake with her picture on it. So that's what we're going to show for today. And again, shout out to Asuka on that one. But yeah, lots of fun, just like wrestling should be.
Exactly. So Matt, it's been a week. It's been a week. We
It has
talked
been.
about the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. If you guys haven't, go check out. We did an Extreme Rules reaction podcast. It should be in your Wrestling or Half Up feeds. We don't do the YouTube versions for those because we do those live on stereo. So just go and
Mm-hmm.
check that out. But overall, we gave Extreme Rules a B minus. Um, yeah, it was
Yeah.
good. It was serviceable. Go listen to our full thoughts on it because we're not about to recap them here. But
Nope.
we do need to talk about a few things of like the upcoming pay-per-views and stuff like that. So first off, the next pay-per-view
Mm,
is Crown Jewel, the
uh-huh.
Saudi Arabia show.
Problematic show.
Yeah, the
Yes.
very, very problematic show that I just it is, when I tell you I've never watched that show like live or whatever.
Yeah. Same, actually.
Yeah, I don't I kind of refuse, and it's just kind of like it's one of those things where people are like, "Oh, but you're still watching the product, so aren't you still supporting it?" I'm like, I'm there's some things we swallow to watch our favorite wrestlers in this corporation that is WWE, but I normally do not watch the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. So it is mildly very, very annoying that they are like really putting together a card. And I'm like, send us some streams, send us some some back alley things because
Oh my god.
I do not want to support that show, yo. Like I really don't.
No, of course not. And I think, the cool thing about having a podcast to talk about it is that, like, we could watch the things that are really problematic while also pointing out how problematic they might be. And
Very
I'm sure that
true.
we'll make more time for that as that Saudi Arabia show gets
Gets
closer,
closer.
as it
Yeah,
inches closer, just looming
closer and
over us,
closer.
about 2.5 weeks away or so,
Yep.
something like that.
Hmm.
What day of the week is it?
It's on.
I
It's
saw the date. What day?
Yes. It's always on a Thursday. It's like the 21st. I want to say it's the 21st of October.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
well,
they always do those on a Thursday. I don't know why. The time difference. And not only that is it on Thursday, it's going to be at like 3 p.m. It's going to be in the middle of the day or noon, something like that. I got to
well,
check. But
I
it's always
mean,
like in the middle of the day for us,
is but
Eastern folks.
on a completely different note, today is October 2nd. Is that Mean Girls Day? Is that what people call today?
Oh, it might be. That explains
Because
why
if
my
it is, if it is, then when it comes time to cover that show, I might be. I'm sorry.
Good for you, Glen Coco.
Yeah.
That explains it. My bestie bought us like tickets to like a Mean Girls movie party at a theater, and she just sent me the ticket. I was like, okay, sure. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is not a Mean Girls podcast. But
It could be.
So
Let
another
us
thing.
know. Tweet us if you want it to be a Mean Girls podcast
Oh my God,
instead of
that'd
a
be so
wrestling
bad.
podcast, and we'll just
That'd
watch
be the
the show.
shortest.
We'll watch the movie again and again and again. Each
Right.
and
We'll
every
analyze
week.
it 10 minutes, like 10 minutes each week. It's like,
Oh no, we'll watch the whole thing each week and just cover it again and again
and again.
until people tell us to stop.
They also announced the King
Yeah.
of the Ring tournament is back, which is like pretty interesting since, you know, King Nakamura just a few months ago beat King Corbin to basically take on the King of the Ring mantle. So I wonder if Nakamura has to be like in the competition to legitimize that, I would assume.
No respect. No respect.
Yeah.
Don't take I mean, we'll see. You would imagine that would totally make sense. Or else he'll just have to get rid of the title complete, or the name.
Yeah,
King.
that's normally how it
completely.
works. Yeah,
Like,
so
we'll
yeah,
see.
because King Corbin, Baron Corbin won the King of the Ring tournament. That was like in what 2019, I want to say it was. It was like right before the pandemic. So he was like King of the Ring for more than a year. It's only supposed to be like every year, and so
yeah.
and
But they've gotten rid of it and brought it back. They've gotten rid of it and brought it back so many different times over the years that
Very
I'm
true.
like, I'm just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. So
You know,
we'll see.
It's changed a lot.
If they're smart, King Nakamura will be in the King of the Ring tournament, and they'll talk about how it's kind of like him defending it, but we'll see. But the bigger news, at least for me, is the announcing of the Queen's Crown tournament, which is what we're just assuming is effectively a Queen of the Ring. I don't know why they didn't want to call it Queen of the Ring, but they're calling it the Queen's Crown tournament.
I mean, yeah, I guess maybe what I would imagine is that it might be a different format than the King of the Ring somehow, either in when they have the matches or like the bracket structure or number of people. But if it's not different in any way, then that was just a waste of our brain space.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, I'm excited. We love women's tournaments. The Mae Young Classic was amazing. We got 2 of those. So anything that will get more women on my TV is like, I mean, come on. I'm down for it.
Yeah. And we were talking, and now I'm just like, what were we talking about during the pay-per-view reactions? This actually came up because we were talking about Charlotte, and I was imagining the tournament, which I assumed was Queen of the Ring, which hadn't been announced yet. Exactly. And I hope that they bring in other women for it rather than it just being women who are on the roster competing against each other, because that's just so much more fun when you have outside people coming in, or maybe it's a mix. That's one of the things that was so great about the Mae Young Classic. Just all of the women from outside of WWE, like legitimately who were not under contract or who hadn't debuted, being brought together to compete and be featured. So we'll see. I mean, either way, it'll be good. It's just a question of, will it be great?
Right. And I would honestly, we're spending so much time on this, but I don't know if they'll do that, only because like when I look at other companies now, there are women on other companies. I'm like, oh, I remember her from the Mae Young Classic. And that was, the original one was what, like
2017, maybe
2017. Yeah. So 4 years ago. So it's a good boost for them. But 4 years ago, there was not competing companies. You know what I'm saying? So would WWE really take a chance on inviting non-contracted women again to come and do this tournament and spotlight them, just so that they can turn around and sign with one of their rivals or competitors? I don't know if that climate is there anymore in WWE's eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But there is like a sliver of women who could potentially. I like talking about this because it's fun, and I know we'll
Yeah,
talk about it a lot more later.
of
But it's
course.
like Beth Phoenix could be interesting to see pop up, and she's under
Mm-hmm.
contract, obviously.
Obviously.
Molly Holly potentially, who's also under contract, I think, as a trainer.
Yeah,
And then there
as
are
a
others
producer,
like
I think.
just throw, or as a producer, throw
Mhm.
in some people like that
That would be
who.
really cool.
But
Yeah.
you know,
Like have some old school girls come back and be like, I
yeah,
never got a chance to participate in a Queen of the Ring tournament, so I want to
old
try. Like,
girls.
I, did
Yeah.
I say
No,
older
you said old
women?
school. And then, no,
Okay,
actually,
yeah,
like,
because
no, let me make the
not
clarification,
me,
though, by the way, very quickly. That, like, that's
not
the thing
me, not just
that's the other
ageism.
thing that I think we've talked about this before, but it is disappointing because, like, they're all still so young. Like,
Yes.
most of the women from the last 20 years are still, they literally look the same.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
yeah, so
So
good for. I
crazy.
mean, that would be awesome, but wishful thinking, and let's hope that Vince
Wishful thinking.
McMahon, the the overlord of the wrestling business, is listening in.
And again, they're saying that the finals for the Queen's Crown tournament will be in Saudi Arabia. So I know we're looking
What?
at yeah, yeah,
Missed that detail.
yeah, and so including the match that's already announced, Becky, Sasha, and Bianca, that's
Yeah.
at least one more women's match in Saudi Arabia, and so it's hard because um historically the women weren't allowed to wrestle there at first, and then we
Yeah.
got Natty and Lacey were the first women's match in Saudi Arabia. Then after
Hmm.
that we got Bailey versus Naomi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now we're getting at bare minimum two women's matches, and it's just like wow, like I mean,
I would like
you know,
more
it's kind of like
context
it's
on.
progress ish. Like I
Well, I
don't
mean, it's
know.
like,
I don't
is
know.
it progress or
I
is it just like,
don't
oh yeah, we're okay
know.
with these people who are not like in this country ever, who are not part of this culture coming in and performing?
Yeah.
But like, would it be different if there were women from that country who are performing there? Maybe.
I d-
I
I
don't
don't
even. We'll
know.
get
I
into
don't even
this
want to
later.
exactly. I'm just kind of
We'll
like I
touch it
don't
later,
even
but we
know.
will touch it.
We will. And it kind of reminds me like
Aggressive.
God, why are we doing this? But like I did like I watched Dark Side of the Ring and I love Dark Side of the Ring and I've been catching up on it on Hulu. And
Yeah.
I literally just watched the episode about the collision in Korea.
Ooh.
You know what I'm talking
What
about?
did you think?
It was nuts, like completely nuts. For
I
anybody who
didn't know
doesn't
about it.
know, the collision in Korea was when WCW and Antonio Inoki from Japan. I don't know what the name of his wrestling company was there, and then Muhammad Ali. They all got together to put on a wrestling show in North Korea, and they took some of the talents there, and the stuff that the talent went through while in North Korea was like ridiculous. And now I realize why people were saying at that, remember what happened at the last Saudi show when they were
Yeah.
saying like they wouldn't let the plane with the some of the superstars leave. And now I understand why people were referencing the collision in Korea. So yeah, go
Yeah.
check that out. It's on Hulu, Dark Side of the Ring, Collision in Korea.
Yeah, and it's so fun. I literally just downloaded a bunch of Dark Side of the Ring episodes
Yeah,
on Hulu like a few days ago. So I'm actually going to watch it because
go watch it.
I hadn't watched that episode. I listened to a podcast that talked about that episode and how bananas it is.
Oh,
So I still need to
it
watch, but
is. It's
totally like
crazy.
that's probably what I'm going to do at some
Yeah.
point between this episode and next week's episode. So, you
Okay.
know.
I think that about wraps up the news. So
Yeah.
if you want to send us any of your long form questions, you can always send an email to wrestling at Rob has a website.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at wrestling RHAPup, or join the conversation using hashtag wrestling RHAPup on Twitter. Where can they find us on Facebook, Matt?
Oh, well, you could find us a lot of places on Facebook. In general, you could find us where you could find RHAP overall. So, um, there are places, but what we really want to plug is the Job has a Squadcast group, which is a private Facebook group where there are a bunch of people in the RHAP community. Really, it's a small community of wrestling fans within the RHAP community who are there interacting, providing questions for the show, and um, I don't know why I won't say henceforth. Like, what do I need? Henceforth becoming part of the show. And so that, it's a really great group, and, people who are really into wrestling, but also this cross section of wrestling and reality TV to an extent, which is really nice to find because you don't find that everywhere. So if you want to be part of that, just reach out to us in the other places that Mari mentioned, and we will hook you up. Or reach out to, as I said the last time we recorded, reach out to Chappelle at Chappelle's _ show on Twitter, and he will make sure that you get everything you need from us and get into that group.
Chappelle's the plug.
Yeah, Chappelle's the plug.
We also have our own podcast feed, so you can get the Wrestling RHAPup wherever you get your podcasts. And hopefully you're joining us here on YouTube, watching our lovely faces. To find us on YouTube, go to the Rob Has a Podcast YouTube page and search Wrestling RHAPup.
And you know what? I just want to take a second, Mari, to stop. And I'm pulling out my own phone right now for this. Give us 5 stars, especially on the podcast apps. There's so much wrestling content that's out there that it could be hard to find, us, to find the people that, find the people who are talking about this stuff, especially in the reality TV podcasting world, because we're in that weird overlap. But yeah, take some time right now as you listen to my soft, soothing voice, or look at my soft, childlike face on YouTube, and pull up that podcast app, open it up, type in wrestling, WRESTLING space RHAPUP. It should come right up. You click on the little icon that says Wrestling RHAPup, or you click on the one that says Reality TV RHAPup, but really click on the one that says Wrestling RHAPup, and just hit that 5-star button. Hopefully you did that. And if you didn't just do that now, just hit that 15-second back button and do it. And we'll be checking.
Do the directions.
Don't worry.
Yes.
We'll be checking. So thank you for that. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you.
Thank you. We appreciate those 5 stars you just gave us, because you're not stingy
so
with the 5 stars.
Shout out.
All right. And it is the perfect time of the month, the beginning. It is the beginning of the month. So go join the RHAP Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/RHAP and become a patron, so you can get exclusive access to exclusive shows, podcast feed by the RHAP community. One of them is the Survivor Q&A, which I will be on Monday. It's patron exclusive. Of course, the patron 5 for 5 and patron games. I think there's a patron Mafia game being put together by Kalish and Puya, maybe. So if you want some exclusive content, go right now to www.patreon.com/RHAPup. Tell them the Wrestling RHAPup sent you, and become a patron to this amazing community.
Yeah, I think patreon.com/RHAP.
Yes.
And, the thing I would say too is, I'm a patron. We're patrons. Our guest today is a patron. So not only do you get to interact with the other patrons, get some exclusive content. I was just listening to one of the Survivor 41, one of the Big Brother 23 exclusives, featuring none other than Rob Sesternino's baby boy, Dominic Sesternino, who just turned 8. Happy birthday, Dominic. Hopefully you're listening. Hopefully you're giving us those 5 stars. But yeah, you get to interact with us and kind of be part of the community with us. So we look forward to getting to know you and meeting you there and all of the patron exclusive stuff.
All right. We have a very special guest this week. We do. Yes. So Matt, would you do the honors, please?
Will I ever, Mari? I need to. It's been a while since this. Making her way to the podcast from the harbor city, the Emerald City of Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. She's a listener, a patron, a podcaster, a reader, a writer, director, editor of audio, textual, and visual media, with works ranging from Dirty Underground Cabaret to the stage of Sydney Opera House, a production of Romeo and Juliet that's toured all over Australia and has worked throughout Australia and the world, from London to Edinburgh to New York to Christchurch to Portland to Boston to even more places since wherever I found that information from. She is the Swiss Army knife of RHAP. Please welcome Sarah Carradine.
Oh, love that.
Tap
Yes.
doesn't matter if you don't respect it. Good morning.
Good
This
morning,
is
Sarah.
amazing. Oh, hello. I'm
Yeah.
podcasting today from the unceded lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And how amazing to see both of you today. Wow. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Yes, and thank you for that land acknowledgement and showing respect for where you are. And we're glad that you join us. We're glad that you can be here.
Yes.
How does it
What else
feel?
would I be doing but
I
sleeping?
don't know.
Yeah.
What else would you be doing?
Yeah, sleeping, getting that beauty rest that we all love.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Of course.
I know, just so that the wonderful listeners know, I know absolutely nothing about wrestling, but I am completely enchanted, enamored, excited, thrilled with the clips that I've seen so far. And I'm really excited to talk about it and learn more.
Well, we love all those words. We love all the words that you said too. And I will also say that we love that you aren't a wrestling fan and that you know a lot more about wrestling than you did when you started the week. We'll admit you do. But this is also a good time to mention that if you are a listener or watching on YouTube and have friends who are not wrestling fans, this is probably a really great episode to listen to of the Wrestling RHAPup. I think in general we try to cater to non-fans, casual fans too, but this is gonna be a good one. Sarah's gonna be the bridge to bring in the new people, the really opening the door for so many people to become wrestling fans. So thank you, Sarah.
That's a wonderful mixed metaphor. I'm a bridge that opens the door. I am all things.
You're a bridge that opens the door.
I love it. Yes, and like Matt said, we are here because we just want wrestling. We want to expose wrestling to as many people as possible. It's such a weird, wacky world, and it normally has something for everybody. So we keep it fun here. We keep it positive, but we also are not afraid to shoot on things. And thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. So let's jump right in. So each week we go over the highlights of the week from Raw, SmackDown, AEW, and all of our highlights can be found in our show notes in a very, very handy playlist, either in your podcast app or under the YouTube description. So you can follow along as we talk about the different clips. So we have to start with Raw. We normally start with Raw. A lot of it is the fallout from the Extreme Rules. But we're just going to kind of keep it to the stuff that, really popped this week. And we have to start with Big E versus Bobby Lashley. I mean, man, oh man, oh man. During Extreme Rules, before they were even done, before Extreme Rules was even over, Bobby Lashley and Big E were cutting promos on each other, talking about how they wanted a one-on-one match. Bobby wanted a one-on-one match, told Big E to stop hiding behind New Day. So they announced before the pay-per-view was even over that Big E and Bobby Lashley would go one-on-one. And not only that, but open Raw. So like we said on the podcast, like they went all in, they wanted to get those ratings from Monday Night Football. And I mean, this match was amazing. And we got the return of the Hurt Business, which was interesting. And the New Day came to help defend. And then it ended up in a steel cage match. So this was great. I can't really complain about anything that we saw. And and I actually I watched all of Raw, and so they very much paced this really well, and I love when they build storylines through the night. Sarah, can I just get your reaction on the first clip that you saw? I really want to know what you thought when you opened this first clip.
It was the first clip I saw, and there was no gentle introduction. There's no hand holding. It was these two amazing athletic men in amazing outfits, just going for each other. And I sent you both a message going, I'm screaming and gasping. It's so, I'm so excited. You've made a fan of me. It's so visceral. You feel it. You follow it. I don't know. So Lashley, the one with the bare chest, he has fantastic eye. He tells the story with his eyes, with his face. And then Big E has that amazing sort of lurex lame apricot outfit. And then his friends come and they're wearing the same color. It was like, they're doing a color story. You can tell. And then a shouty man comes and tells them all off for being chaotic and says,
WWE official.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Adam Pearce. No, even
the officials are like performers, and he says, and I wrote down a cage with 3 exclamation marks because he says, you're terrible. Stop it. We've got to sort this out once and for all. And when he said once and for all, I thought it won't be once and for all. This is going to go on and on and on, and I love it.
Right.
And they're going to be in a cage, and I was like, this is like 2 minutes of my life that just changed me, and my jaw was on the ground. I thought, a cage. Wow. I can't believe it. I've got to see this cage. So yes, that's a few of the thoughts that were going through my head watching this, just with admiration and fear and emotion, and I was just completely delighted.
Wow. And one of the things I'll say, that was such a beautiful description, and we're only just getting started. But I think the thing that one thing I really appreciate about what you said is even just pointing out Bobby Lashley and his eyes and just the intensity of them, because that was just a note that I had here as I was watching the show. Bobby Lashley debuted in WWE. I don't have the exact date, but I'll say somewhere close to 15 years ago, really, at this point. And, what's so interesting is he has the intensity, he has the character, he has the charisma, and he didn't have all of that back then. I think WWE was interested in him because he still had the size and there was clearly the potential, but the fact that 15 years later, we could see him blossoming into this full-fledged character. It is really beautiful. And the fact that he could be really the face of the show, like, coming out first, and he's been in that position most of the year. It says a lot. But I think what's so cool about what you pointed out, Sarah, is just all of like the little details, which are the, well, I wouldn't even call them intangibles, but almost those more intangibles that people don't think about and process when it comes to why it works, why you're reacting in a certain way, why you're feeling the emotion, even the color schemes of what people are wearing. Like, it bothers me when teams do not dress the same. I feel like there's a lack of chemistry there. You have to coordinate the outfits. That's what it's all about. So I'm here for it. You might need to replace me and Mari on this show. At some point, just to break it down.
Something that occurs to me that I saw again and again in the clips that you sent is something that it's actually quite extraordinary now. I'm only thinking about it now, is the amount of stillness that is allowed in these matches, performances, whatever they are, that you think of wrestling. Well, I suppose I thought of wrestling as sort of bash, bash, bash. And obviously it's not. It's very skillful and so on in its physicality. But what I'm now realizing surprised me was the moments of stillness that are allowed, the moments of just looking, two people just looking at each other, and the crowd just absolutely loving that, and the electricity that comes between them, so that it's not this unrelenting, intense motion. You get these moments of stillness, and then the audience imbues that with the emotion that goes between the two performers and between the audience and the performers, and it's extraordinary to see how many people are there live and how needed they are. And even in the drafts when it's just people saying names, the fact that there's a live audience there having to do with it, there's an incredible ownership. I'm all over the place now. I've gone on to something else.
No, you're,
I mean, I really,
perfect.
I noticed something that I felt was this incredible ownership of the fans, and I thought, wow, that is, you've got to bottle that. That's incredible.
Exactly. And we just came off a year during the pandemic. Wrestling businesses could not have the fans, like they performed in empty arenas. So we did lose a lot of that majesty from not having the fans there, but it was a very sink or swim type of environment, and a lot of wrestlers got to actually swim and shine to the top during that pandemic era. So it's really interesting because the crowds really do help. Like we saw without them, we saw with different types of variations of the crowds, but just being back in front of people really does help the product. Now we're still in a pandemic, so I'm it's kind of bittersweet, but it does move the product along, and it's something that makes it more akin to other sports, how rabid the fan base can be, supporting their different teams and stuff like that. So that's a well pointed out thought there, Sarah. And I just want to also point out before we move on that, I mean, WWE led with 2 Black men who were, WWE champions. Bobby Lashley was the WWE champion before Big E. Big E took the championship off of Bobby Lashley. So the first time we've had 2 back-to-back Black men as the WWE champion, and then to have 6 Black men open the show and then headline in a steel cage match, like that just says that they have so much faith in Bobby and Big E to go head to head with Monday Night Football, and I loved every second of it. Matt, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, just to add to that, and Sarah, one thing I now this is like kind of meta because I'm appreciating what you're saying in the moment. I think that there's so much that Mari and I appreciate about pro wrestling, just from being fans for really most of our lives, definitely at this point. But I think that often people will look at wrestling and not even take in these elements, and it's so powerful to be able to point them out. The one thing I will say is that, you talking, Mari, about the 6 Black men in the ring, that occurs to me anytime where it's like just Black people in the ring in featured spots, and WWE has had a lot more of that recently, which is really cool. Or even just more broadly bringing in more people of color and featuring them in different spots. But it makes me think of the parallel to the Cookout on Big Brother 23, and think about the shift that we're seeing in terms of representation in media, and even in just opportunities that people are given to shine and to perform. And whether that's a competition reality show or sports entertainment / pro wrestling, it's cool that it's beautiful that we're getting those opportunities to see people perform and shine and bring their own unique skills and just everything that's different and diverse to the table. So
exactly,
I love that. But even beyond that, with these 6 performers, Shelton Benjamin, who's been around WWE, on and off really though, for like the last almost 20 years, Cedric Alexander, newer, but an incredible talent. And who's been around for probably close to 5 years or so. And then Bobby Lashley and Big E and The New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. They're all just such incredible performers. And I love that they're kind of just being positioned as that, and that people are accepting them as that without it becoming like, oh, they're all, these are 6 Black people in the ring. Because it's more than that. They're really the face of what they're doing. And I love that WWE trusts to put them in that position without there being any kind of backlash, which I haven't really seen.
We are lucky that not lucky, but the New Day, it has been that's Big E's, that's the people in Apricot you described, Sarah. They're the New Day. They're like they were the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. They're a highly decorated stable, and so they've been embraced by the fans. And the Hurt Business was newly formed heel faction, bad guy faction, and they've just been playing off each other beautifully. That's steel cage, our second clip we have with the steel cage. They got the steel cage so that it'll keep the New Day and the Hurt Business out. And the rules for the steel cage, Sarah, is when you're in the steel cage, you either gotta escape it, which was why, you know, we saw Big E climb to the top, or Bobby Lashley trying to climb out the door, or you get a pinfall or submission inside the cage. Of course, the New Day and Hurt Business still came out. They fought around the cage, on top of the cage. Kofi Kingston threw his whole body off of the cage. Xavier Woods had this really cool spot where Bobby Lashley was reaching for the door. It looked like he was heading to escape, and Xavier Woods closed the door on Bobby's head. It was just, that cage match was just so good. And it ended with Big E successfully retaining his championship before being confronted by Drew McIntyre. What did you think about the cage portion of this storyline, Sarah?
Well, visually, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And just, I mean, as a theatre director, you're always looking for levels. I don't know if I can kind of go off on this slight tangent here.
Oh, please, no, do.
Levels are really interesting. So, you know, there's a flat stage, but if you have anything that's higher, where you place people in relationship to each other, is visually really very interesting, rather than everybody on a flat stage. And so what I loved about, I mean, I love this about the ring anyway, because as soon as you have the ropes and people climbing on the ropes and standing on the posts, if that's what they're called,
yep, posts, good.
And being on the floor and being up and being through things, it's so visually interesting. And then you add a cage with people climbing up the outside. I once saw an extraordinary production of Titus Andronicus that was set inside a cage. And people were climbing and falling and thrusting, and it just reminded me of this kind of really elemental feeling of these people, but particularly these men. Like, it's, what's really interesting is seeing all the clips. And again, I'm kind of jumping out a little bit, but like the ideas of masculinity and femininity seem at first to be incredibly binary and separated, but the more you watch, the more you see how fluid not only the women are, you know, in their strength and everything, but you also see the men in their costumes and their flexibility and the fact that they are sort of interacting physically with each other. You don't, you know, you see a bending there and
like a grace to it.
Yeah, a grace. So there's this posturing and this kind of hyper masculinity, but there's a gracefulness, a grace, a flexibility. And some of these men are so big, I can't believe how flexible they are as well. They must be doing their yoga.
Yeah.
So the cage was like really elemental, and you had these bodies kind of flying at it and off it, and your eye went every which way, and yet you felt like you saw it all. It's not like you felt like, oh, I looked there, so I missed something over there. There's something quite extraordinary about how the eye is directed with these matches, particularly when there's more than two people, where they take you with them. And I think that might be, again, going back to that interaction with the fans, that they say, come with us. We will take you with us in this match. We will take you with us in this relationship. And I loved it. So the cage match, I've got, they are flying, ! I mean, it seemed like they were flying. At one point, and I love the announcers. I got really into the announcers, and one of them says, "Oh no," like really quietly, because they're doing all of this, they're shouting. And at one point, one of them goes, "Oh no!" And I was like, What's happened? So yeah, I loved this cage. I didn't expect a cage. I didn't know there was a cage. I got a cage. I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the better cage matches we've seen. So I want to move on to Shayna Basler. You don't have any final thoughts, Matt?
Well, no. I look, Sarah just nailed it, because I
Right.
think it's all of the this is the thing that I think I've always gravitated to with wrestling. There are so many levels to it, like literally, but also figuratively. And I think that I also would just point to the commentators. And one of the thoughts I had was how great, how much work they did to like position Big E as a legitimate competitor, as a fighting champion. You know, he didn't only fight to defend his championship once in a night, he fought twice, and there were all these other people coming in. And so if we're really looking at it from like a thematic perspective, you not only have that underdog story and the story of resilience in a way, but you also have this story of friendship, because yes, you had Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin come in and join the Hurt Business, which was kind of devious, but then rejoin and reform the Hurt Business, I should say, which is kind of devious. But then you had the New Day come out, and Mario, you've talked about this before, just the power of even that friendship that has been unwavering for years since they first came together. And we don't see that a lot in wrestling. Sarah, people often turn on one another. There's a lot of drama. We have a lot of tag teams that WWE forms, and then literally months later they'll turn on each other, or a couple of years later they'll turn on each other. So they are exceptional in that way. And I just think that, you know, you couldn't pick a better group of competitors to tell a story with. I'm just glad that we're getting a story out of this. And I mean, on a related note, and maybe we'll touch on this more, but you know, obviously there is this other side story of Bobby Lashley fighting Bill Goldberg. And you know, and in line with that, there's also this more off-screen, just like almost a yearning for Biggie versus Biggie to take on Goldberg. So maybe we're going to see that and shift there. But I think it is really cool what they're doing here. And, you know, we don't always get good stories with WWE. So this is a good story.
Exactly. And you're right. My bad. We do have to talk about Goldberg had just a sit down promo where he was in his house, clearly talking to Bobby Lashley, saying that he's going to make him his next victim, because I think they are scheduled to compete at Crown Jewel against each other. And it was an interesting promo, mostly because the reason why Goldberg was mad was because Bobby Lashley put his hands on Goldberg's son, who was 15. But it was just kind of funny because in the background, Goldberg has this painting of like his arm and his son like dangling off his arm, like one of those newborn photos. And I was like, okay.
It was crazy. I couldn't take my eyes off it. This little nude baby on a man's arm. Like,
that's what I'm saying. It was so like, okay, I get it. You love your son.
Yeah. No, I thought that was it was look, I mean, I have so many questions about that, but I'm just gonna, if you're watching the YouTube version, I will say you're welcome, because I just found this really quickly. But I mean,
it's really cute, but it's just
it is
weird,
really
though.
cute, but it is funny that he said, like, okay, I have my teenage son, and he's not going to be embarrassed at all by me doing this, recording this video in front of a picture of me holding him as a baby. That is really cute. And I think the nice touch that I appreciated, even watching it in real time, watching it live, was just the Bill Goldberg's tattoo,
of course,
one of his, if
very
not his,
iconic
very iconic tattoo, which has also been a logo on a bunch of different materials in the picture. So,
like he understood the assignment. I will get him and his son understood the assignment when they took that picture. Goldberg is like, I'm gonna honor my son while also telling everybody I'm still Bill Goldberg. So it worked out, you know. Sarah,
amazing.
There
was a death threat. He's spitting death threats in front of his picture.
He said, "I might kill you," and the crowd kind of cheered. I was like, Again, this week we saw a lot of death threats, and I'm not a big fan.
It got personal. We'll get
to a few more, but I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. This is what we really want to be putting on TV.
I think it's something with the changing of the seasons, maybe, that
Yeah.
everyone feels the need to get more personal and talk about their families and but we'll get to more of those examples as we go along. Home invasions included.
So I'm sorry, Sarah, did you have?
No, only the home invasions are just, they were very upsetting.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the home invasions. Oh,
We'll
Jesus.
get to those.
We will.
So we got Shayna Basler. Next we got Shayna Basler. So last week she took out Nia Jax by putting her Nia Jax's arm on the steel step and then doing her kind of trademark like arm destroyer thing. Like it's just like she just stomps on people's arms. It's like that's what she's been doing since she debuted, and it's hard to watch in a good way. When she did it to Nia, she looked remorseful. When she did it to Eva Marie on Monday, she did not look remorseful at all. Eva Marie was talking basically about how she would have won blah 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 women's championship. Nobody cares. And Shayna Basler comes out, basically puts her to sleep, and then continues to do the same thing that she did to Nia and take out Eva Marie's arm. And again, here I think Shayna Basler is they're trying to position her to be like a badass and a heel character, but the problem is she keeps taking out women that the audience also kind of don't like. So they're like, one more time. And it was a brutal beatdown. And I love this because this just means they're building up Shayna to possibly go up against whoever's the champion. We will talk about the championship. I don't know what's going on there. But I like this. Sarah, by any chance, did you watch Celebrity Big Brother?
The latest one, yes, I think I did.
The US one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you realize, but Eva Marie was Natalie Eva Marie. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I loved her. I loved her hair.
Yes. Yeah. Her. Unfortunately, when it comes to wrestling, she is not loved in the wrestling world. I don't know if you picked that up.
I didn't exactly pick it up, but it's interesting now. I think back to Celebrity Big Brother, and she.
Oh, nice.
Look at that. Look at that.
Next to Lolo Jones here on the YouTube. And yes, she always, that's one thing you can't knock about her, by the way. Just her Eva Marie or Natalie Eva Marie's hair is just
on point.
Always on point.
Does it not get in the way? I did notice, although in one of the clips there was somebody who held someone's plait.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
But does their hair not get in the way? I wondered that. And that's what I liked about Shayna, who one of the announcers says Shayna Belair is in a downright sanguineous mood. Incorrect use of that word, but just brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And she was just so sort of slick back. She reminded me of us in the 80s. We did a little bit of that sort of look with the hair slicked back and everything. And
like just like a Stone Cold Killer, right? Like just coming from
and like
blood.
Practical. It's a very practical hairstyle for someone who's kind of breaking people's shoulders. But I like the gold and pink bikini and the gold boots. But my eye just was so drawn to Shayna. There was something again about her presence, about the slickness of her, and her outfit being very. This is what I am wearing to beat you to a pulp.
Yeah,
very
rather than let me show off my gorgeous body. I mean. I know we shouldn't talk about people's bodies, but like every wrestler that I saw had a gorgeous body. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
But if you see, the visual story, even without the pose that they're in, but the visual story that these two women are telling with the gold and the pink and a lot of skin and the flying blonde hair, and then this kind of efficient, coiled spring. Oh, I loved her. I loved her.
Yeah.
Ooh,
big Shayna fan, so I'm excited.
We love it. We love that. And all of that is so beautiful. And I think that one thing that definitely translates that wouldn't be a surprise, Sarah, is that, you know, Shayna Basler comes from a mixed martial arts MMA background.
Right.
And so she has that very just kind of like raw, roughneck style in terms of wrestling. But I mean, it translates. Like, you have a fighter there versus someone like Eva Marie coming from a model background or fitness model background, you know, so that contrast is so clearly there with the characters, even visually. But I liked this segment a lot. And this is probably one of my favorite segments on the show, just because it felt like we were watching a like horror movie type of
like Jaws.
Run, except it's the villain who you're like, oh, they're gonna get her, she's gonna be the first one killed in the movie. And the thing that is my favorite part about these segments with Shayna, with the stomp onto the chair, number one, is that I don't really understand how they did it. Like, I don't understand the magic of how exactly the stomp happens. Like, I guess maybe it's just as simple as, you know, Shayna is more lightly stomping down with her foot and Eva's turning her arm down, but like there's such a margin of error that's there. But my favorite part really was just the screams. Like, last week, Nia Jax had her arm stomped on, and we have never heard her scream in such a high-pitched way. And the same with Eva Marie. So I kind of hope that this continues, because to me, even just that reaction is iconic. And to your point, Mari, I think that, to me, it seems like this is Shayna being built into a face, or a good character, a good person.
If anything, it's just a contender at the very least, because I think it'll depend on who will be the champion at the time for them to decide what way they want to take her character. Because WWE does this all the time. They think they're building a heel, and then the audience loves them. They think they're building a bad guy, and then the audience loves them, and then they're like, are they face now? Like, so are they a good guy now? So
Eva's
amazing.
So good, though. I just want to underscore that, because she doesn't get a lot of credit for what she does in the role that she plays, but I really like the role that she's playing. Like, this is the role that she needs to be in, like running away, being chased, being attacked by Shayna, and all of that. Like, this is what she needs to be doing. And actually, to your point, Sarah, you asked about her hair. I mean, Eva does not wrestle all that much, so she could probably afford to have like 3-foot long hair, or whatever is going on here. This picture actually is probably the best showcase of how long and wild her hair is. But I do think that there's you need characters that are kind of like the badasses, but also just the, like, I wouldn't even call her damsel in distress, but like I like whatever it is that she's filling.
Yeah. So next up, we have Keith Lee debuts his new nickname, inspired by a legendary wrestler. So this was just a squash match. Keith Lee was introduced as Keith Bearcat Lee. He squashed Akira Tozawa really quickly. Basically, not only debuting a new nickname for Keith Lee, but also debuting what is more than likely a heel persona here, a bad guy persona.
Right.
Which is interesting, because first off, Keith Lee is a beloved wrestler. People have been wondering where he's been for months now. They've been waiting for him. People love Keith Lee. Second, we get the nickname. People were asking, why does he have a nickname all of a sudden? First off, I think we talked about it a few podcasts ago, but the rumor was he was being kept off of TV because they were trying to negotiate how to license his name, because Keith Lee is his real name. And it's a lot of just red tape when it comes to pushing somebody whose name you don't have license over. So they were probably trying to figure out a nickname for him. And now we have Bearcat, which is inspired by the wrestler Bearcat Wright, who was a famous Black wrestler in the 1950s, 1960s. he held a championship. He was actually a face at that time, which was very uncommon for that time. He held a championship. I forget the name of the championship. Some people say that depending on how you look at that championship, that was possibly the heavyweight championship for the company that he held it. So there's a lot of debate that maybe Bearcat Wright was technically the first Black champion, world champion. But this is basically an homage to Bearcat Wright. And it's a small squash match, and Keith Lee is being repackaged. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't want to there you go. Thank you, Matt. Matt pulled up the Bearcat Wright, the brown bomber, a picture of Bearcat Wright from the 50s that Keith Lee posted in his Twitter, talking about why he wanted to tribute Bearcat Wright. So great stuff. Sarah, anything on this?
Oh, just Akira, as it was
Akira Tozawa.
Yeah. He was calling for, I love that idea of the fighter in the middle of the ring, the empty ring. Again, when I was talking before about stillness, there's also like this individuality. He's in the ring, he's calling, and one of the announcers says, "Be careful what you wish for."
Yeah.
And it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And then we have, now that you've explained why it was sort of so quick, it's like the thoughtfulness of how do we reintroduce him? How do we bring in his nickname? How do we feature him without like really economically time-wise? I mean, this is extraordinary. Look at this. Look at them flying, absolutely flying, and the size of that man. And they talk about how much he weighs a lot. Like it comes up again when he's drafted.
Yes.
I think, do you have to say how much he weighs? But this announcer, the fact that the announcers are so part of the story, that also took me by surprise. But yes, the announcer just saying, "Be careful what you wish for," which is a very kind of, well, it's almost Shakespearean, that idea of hubris, of this lone fighter saying, "Come, I will take on anybody," and then his face betraying anybody except this totally unexpected person that I never thought would come. And of course, that
and then here we go.
It's just beautiful.
Yep. Matt, anything?
No, I think that the one thing I would say is I'm excited to see where Bearcat goes, where Keith Lee, this Bearcat character, goes, because he is so likable. But I think that I'm really excited to see him as this heel character, this villain, because there's so much potential. Like the presence that he brings, he's able to bring that intensity. And even looking at him, like looking at his face in the ring in that moment, like it was so clear to me, I would rather him be a villain, just because it's nice to have him smiling and knowing he's a nice guy and likable, but the fire and intensity and strength he's able to bring is really intimidating to different characters. And I could see him being more of a contender if they really run with this and keep putting in these smaller competitors. And to your point, Sarah, about them mentioning his weight, I don't know why my head went to this person specifically, but I think of about 20 years ago, to age our wrestling fandom. About 20 years ago, Spike Dudley is one wrestler who comes to mind, and Spike was just really tiny. What? Spike Dudley?
No, I am, but I'm like, do we need to go on a Spike Dudley tangent?
No, but he was so tiny, and I think that like it's just cool that they're super intentional about how they stress the size of everybody.
And I think I liked what I really liked about them stressing his size is because they also kept saying despite his size, he can do so many like different things. And like Sarah, you didn't get to see it because it's a squash match, which is essentially literally just there to put the person over, but he literally flies around the ring. Like he does high flyer moves for somebody who's as big as he is. So that's why they're intentionally going on his weight, because you don't see that many big men do the things that he does. And this is why I'm excited to see where they go with him. But I also, I hope they don't take away what he's good at. And he was always good on the mic. He was always charismatic. So, and Matt knows I hate when they take charismatic big men and make them just stand there and look menacing, because then you take away one of the things that we like about him. So I'm wondering if we'll see as much of the high flying stuff now that he's a heel. But I'm not about to, doom and gloom it right now, because I think as of right now, they're trying to reintroduce the character and they're doing good. And I can definitely see him probably going for that US title belt sometime soon. Yeah, if not, and then down the line for the big belt. So
yeah, that's the question, kind of like where they take it at this point, because I mean, I don't think that there's really a spot at the top right now. So it is a question of what direction they put him in. Maybe it's against like you said, Damian Priest, US champion, would be a great place to plug him in, just as the with the heel face dynamic. But we'll see. We'll see. And it's just as a side note, something else that I saw was that Sheamus, who we didn't see, or who we're not talking about in this, he broke his nose. And he has been like a big competitor for Damian Priest in the US Championship. So there is some more space opened up for who kind of enters that picture. So maybe that will be Keith Lee. That would make a lot of sense, actually.
It's just as well, before we leave him too, his costuming is very interesting. They have him in a black leotard essentially, which emphasizes that the almost triangular shape of his musculature. So he's got the comparatively smaller hip area, but then they have these wonderful, and then the very low cut. So you're really seeing his body. His body is extraordinary, and you want to look at it, and it just draws you like a planet, the gravitational pull. You're drawn towards him, but he's got these hot pink slashes across there, which is fantastic. So is that a cat? Is he the bear cat?
Yeah, bear cat
slashed him. Has he slashed himself? But that wonderful fuchsia color against his skin. I just think that costuming really simple, but really, again, a lot of thoughts gone into the shape of the outfit, the color, and then just the idea of that slashing. So I really appreciated that too.
Yeah, what that gives me, Sarah, is like he survived. He survived the fight. He was taking on a cougar or a lion or another bear cat, and he lived. We're seeing it, like just getting there. Like I would love to see him fight a bear.
Oh sure.
Well, that wraps up our Raw highlights.
Only if the bear consented. Only if the bear consented.
Yeah. No, not beat. I don't want him to. I don't want him to beat up any animals. PETA, don't come for me. I support the animals too, and I'm just saying,
PETA, come for
the
Matt.
bear. It's rustling. It's predetermined, and we'll keep going.
Don't tell me that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So luckily there are no animals fighting in our next segment of the show, right, Mari?
Yeah. So let's move on to NXT 2.0. We got to add that. NXT 2.0. Before we get into any of the clips, real quick, Sarah, what did you think about this batch of clips, the NXT 2.0? This was the brighter arena. Could you tell the difference between the different products? Oh, I don't know if we didn't even explain it to you, but there are different brands. Like there's Raw, there's NXT, there's AEW is a completely different company, and then there's SmackDown. So we just got out of the Raw clips. We're entering the brand spanking NXT clips. What did you think about kind of like, could you get the shift there and the feeling?
Well, I mean, this is something thing that I gleaned, and also because you very helpfully labeled the clips, which thank you very much. Yeah. You can take my hand. But it was certainly like, just to step back for a moment. I love all the names, New Day and we're going to come across something quite extraordinary coming up. But Hit Row, I thought, oh, what a fantastic name. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it just seemed lighter, brighter, more youthful, less, it didn't have so much heaviness in it, and a heaviness in a good way. That sort of traditional thing we think of as wrestlers as, right, I'm going to come and I'm going to do this. And with the man with the nude baby, death threat, talking about himself in the third person, size and all of that. And then we get this Hit Row, these kids, like fantastic kids who have like this, the back and forth between them I absolutely loved. I loved the moment where one of the men was going to say the B word, and then they were not horrified. And then we see them later, their reaction to being drafted and their delight. I mean, look at them. They're fabulous. They're like, they're like us going to the Berlin Club in 1984 is what I
remember that.
Say. I remember wearing stuff like that. So, but see, this kind of swagger, flow, flexibility, delight, lightness. Not that the others didn't, but it's kind of more the delight of the game. We are players in the game, whereas the ones before were very much inside their characters and very much inside their stories. It's like that's what I saw with this group of 4 people, Hit Row, and I loved them all straight away. I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, so our first NXT 2.0 clip was Hit Row. They opened NXT 2.0, and what I loved about NXT 2.0 this week, which honestly, it was kind of hard for me to just pull clips from it, to be quite honest, because it was like amazing from top to bottom, 2 hours, to be quite honest. But they opened it up, and NXT 2.0 this week was ladies' night. So they had 3 women's matches, 4, 3 or 4 women's matches. I can't remember. Yeah, they had a lot. Yeah. And then on top of what they've been doing for the past few weeks of heavily featuring their talent in backstage segments and promos, NXT 2.0 really is just hitting on all cylinders. And again, there will be a segment of the wrestling population that does not like NXT 2.0. I'm just not one of them. I think this was perfect, mostly because if I'm just gonna go get into it a little bit here about the brand NXT 2.0, I think Vince McMahon did a great job with this rebranding. Sarah, about 3 weeks ago, NXT rebranded to NXT 2.0. NXT was originally WWE's developmental brand, but along the way, they kind of lost sight of that. And so 3 weeks ago, the big boss, Vince McMahon, came down and reverted it back to developmental. And so this is why some of the matches we showed you weren't as clean as some of the other ones. But it's also why we got way more story and character lines and promos than what we saw on Raw and SmackDown, which are considered the main roster. And I just think this is a genius move because it's just funny to me because NXT was starting to become AEW light. It was starting to become, they were taking indie stars and trying to put like an indie product together under the WWE umbrella. And it worked for a time. It really did. I loved, the Undisputed Era of NXT. But by the time AEW came, it's been 2 years. They are now the established brand when it comes to indie stars and that rougher type of wrestling. So I just think that it was smart. Like wrestling fans, AEW fans have been telling WWE they can't compete with AEW for 2 years now, so if you can't compete with it, do something totally different. And now some of those same fans are like, well, this is trash. The old NXT was better. It's like, if the old NXT was better, then you would have been watching it, And I just think it's just so smart to just switch your lane. Like we say this all the time. Wrestling is not for all wrestling. Wrestling is for everybody, but not all of wrestling is for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like there are just some things you will not like as a wrestling fan. versus something you will. And it's okay. You do not have to like everything, and you don't have to, put that hate out there, that you don't like it. But NXT 2.0 for me is just really good because it's just new upcoming stars that people are getting so excited about. They're giving them promo time. The matches, I do care about match quality, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I've always said that the match quality doesn't matter if there's no story behind it. If I'm just watching people fight to watch people fight, I'm less interested because I don't care unless there's a story attached to it. And that's how I personally watch wrestling, and that's what I value in wrestling. So I think NXT 2.0 is doing just a fabulous job, and I really do feel like in a few months or a year or two, it is going to be the top brand again, like it really, really once was. So I really like this. And so to get back to the highlights, Hit Row, they came out, they hyped up the ladies' night of NXT. They talked about what's going to be happening, and then they hyped up Bfab, and we got Bfab versus Elektra Lopez, who is from La Familia, is what Legado del Fantasma calls themselves. God, she looks so good in her ring gear and stuff. And we got Elektra versus Bfab, which they are green. They are both very, very green. Bfab more than anybody. She was recruited from WWE, not having a lick of wrestling experience. Elektra Lopez is actually the daughter of a former WWE enhancement talent. Yeah, her father worked for WWE in the late 70s, mid 80s as an enhancement talent. Which other people call jobbers. I think he is like a wrestling coach or something like that, from what I saw. But that her father is in the wrestling business, so I think that's why she is a little crisper when it comes to her moves. But she is still also green, like she still just started wrestling. So this match was not great from a pure wrestling standpoint, but they did enough to kind of hide it. We had Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma brawling on the outside at one point to give the women a rest. Matt, what did you think about the match?
I really liked the match. I thought it was a good match, especially for two true rookies when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's not often that we will see WWE just put out two people who are really, truly still learning along the way. But I really loved how they creatively used the tables, the chairs, the kendo stick, like all of it. They brought in all these other things that not only the things that they brought in, but the way that they used them that made the match even more, I don't want to say passable because I don't think that's giving enough credit, but it made it a lot more compelling and interesting to see along the way. And they really did put in a lot of work. But I love that I love that at least in the last couple of weeks, including this match, we've seen WWE developing these two across from each other because it's a great story. And, I would really be excited to see how the story unfolds. I would love if we continue to see Hit Row on NXT a little bit more, even though, of course, they've been drafted.
No, we will. You saw the draft rules. The drafts don't go into effect.
But I hope even further, I just hope that we get the full story when it comes to these two, and maybe they'll have like what's called a blow off match between Bfab and Elektra Lopez. But even, of course, we'll have something between Legado del Fantasma and Hit Row. But this was brilliant, and I think what's fun is that we got to see this so that in like 3 years from now, whenever they're facing off from each other, we could just see the development and how much they've grown along the way. But this was better than I expected. I was a little worried, to be honest, going into the match.
Well, thank you for telling me that. That's illuminating, because I felt that beginningness of them without really being able to identify it. It didn't have that crispness of it. But certainly they went for it. And what I liked was the very handy rubbish bin that just happened to be under the skirt of the ring, and I just found that sort of completely delightful. And if you look under, there were several more under there, so I thought, oh, they know where to go for the rubbish bins. But the announcers, again, giving me life. They disrespected each other's cultures. They said,
they did.
So this was the reason for the big beef. They disrespected each other's cultures, which is kind of so simplistic, but it was also like, okay, hang it on that. And at one point, when they had the stick, one of them said, "Batter up." I thought, where am I? What's going on?
Who knows? What sport is it, right?
Yeah. But they certainly, I mean, it's interesting that they're rookies. They certainly had the passion, the commitment. They had some moves, and now that you've explained that they're rookies, I too am excited to see like how they progress.
Yeah, this was a no disqualification match, so they were able to just pick whatever they wanted to and hit each other with it, and that those type of matches help when it comes to developmental and stuff like that, because it can hide a lot of their flaws. For me, I have to point this out to Objective Wrestling podcast. They missed. There was a lot of spots. There were a lot of spots that were not timed well. It made me really wonder who was calling the match and how they laid the match out. Sarah, sometimes what performers will do, it is predetermined, matches are predetermined, the winner is predetermined, but how you get to that winner can be different depending on the performers. So some performers can go out there, two people, they're like, okay, you have a match tonight. They can go out there and just do a match, what's called doing a match on the fly. They just know each other so well, they can call moves in the ring and just do them. Some people have to map out the match beforehand and know what they're doing spot by spot by spot. And normally, if you'll probably find this funny if you go back later after I've explained this, normally there's always at least one person calling the match to each other. And when you asked about, these women, they wrestle with long hair. The long hair actually helps them call the matches, because if you see if their heads are down and they're near their opponent's ear, they can call the match without you seeing their lips moving. So my whole time I was watching this, I watched it twice, maybe 3 times. I was really wondering who's calling this match, because they're both rookies. And what I think I came to the conclusion of, because some of the spots weren't executed properly, I think the match was mapped out beforehand. And I think, it was totally mapped out beforehand. And then I think the ref was helping them, trying to get them to what spots they needed to be. And I kept feeling like I couldn't tell if Bfab was trying to move on to spots in that weren't in the correct order, or if Elektra Lopez was forgetting the spots and Bfab had to be like, girl, come over here. Like, this is the next spot. But basically they just did it. It was just a few times where they kind of missed the spots there, but that's completely, it makes sense because they're
some of the that's a great point, Mari, because I think actually this is true with wrestling in general. Like the actual moves, I think, are probably the most crisp part that we'll see from wrestlers, mostly from a safety perspective too. They have to be crisp. They need to have things done, but it's the stuff in between where you could really see the transitions, where you could really see things kind of falling apart or looking sloppy. And I think what this match is actually a great example of it. But I also will say, from just the perspective of like growing up going to independent wrestling shows where they would have, like independent wrestling, it's people who are less experienced, who are probably rookies, many of them rookies similar to this. You get a wide range of experience levels there.
Right.
I've seen a lot of hardcore matches or no disqualification matches using weapons where the match could be really, I'll say, passable and look good, but it again, like Mari said, it covers a lot of the
a
lot of the flaws or weaknesses in their performances. But this was fun. This was a fun
It
one
was.
to watch, and I think that they, you know, especially contrasting it with Extreme Rules, the pay-per-view that was supposed to have all sorts of weapons just a couple days before, like this was more extreme than the main roster's Extreme Rules pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So
Even Raw had more Extreme Rules matches than Extreme Rules. It's so weird.
It was, I mean, I'll underscore, it was a choice. It wasn't, a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah, what do you think after that explanation there?
Well, no, that makes sense, because I got to that and I thought, oh no, we know what's happened. It's just not quite. And I think it's, you know, it's the crispness, it's the confidence of those women that will grow. I mean, their commitment was absolutely there.
Yeah, you can feel that, definitely.
Yeah, so just a bit more. Their athleticism wasn't the same as what I'd seen before, but finding out that they're rookies are just flips it for me, and it not only explains what I saw, but it also makes me feel like really positive I didn't feel negatively towards them, but it makes me feel like, if this is them right at the beginning, then I think it bodes really well for their future.
Exactly.
If they continue to work, if they watch it back with their trainers and go, yes, the transitions aren't good, or, you know, you forgot where you were supposed to be, or whatever it might be. And if they can learn from that, and it's interesting to sort of see them come up together as well. You know, I don't know if it's common to have a more experienced wrestler against a rookie wrestler, but it's interesting to see two rookies together.
So yeah, exactly. Like it's really interesting in that way, because I think they both were in the same PC class together. Like they came to WWE together, and when the only way you're going to get better is to keep working at it, right? Yeah. And this is why it's not a bad thing. I'm not when we point this out, we're not being negative or being bad about it. We are pointing it out because it needs to be pointed out, and it's like, yeah, it's going to happen when you're just starting. But that's why a lot of people are excited for Hit Row going up to the main roster, because now Bfab can work with all of the experienced women there. And when you work with experienced women, it's way better. It really is. They can help you way, way more. And I don't think that she hasn't shown anything in the ring that will prevent her from learning or anything like that. And she's really lucky because she's also already charismatic and can work the mic. So a lot of people say that's the hardest thing to teach. The hardest thing to teach is the charisma and being able to move a crowd and stuff like that. Wrestling moves are the easy part, you know, if somebody is dedicated enough to learn. And Elektra as well. I think Elektra is really good in the ring to be where she's at right now. So if her and Legado stay in NXT, I think she'll be fine and can definitely be a major part of that women's division. So it was a great start to the night. I really did like it. Let's go to some shenanigans. Sarah, I know you had been a little confused on this clip. We get the Index honeymoon.
I bloody loved this. Ooh. It was fantastic. Well, first of all, like as soon as Indy talks, I thought, oh, that's an Australian girl. So she's an Australian girl. I understood Dexter, is that his name?
Dexter Lumis, yep.
His character is fabulous. Because he doesn't have to do anything. He just has to be and be he's very present. He's not doing nothing. Don't get it wrong. He's not doing nothing. He's imbuing that whole character. His moustache is just absolutely delicious. The idea that you would go on a honeymoon and get spied on by two people in acid green. The idea of being trapped in the wardrobe while people have sex, but they weren't having sex, they were having a pillow fight. And my favorite thing was the Foley on the condom chain that came out of Dexter's pocket as it came out. Whoever did the Foley on that, the sound on that was just like, oh, perfection.
Yeah.
I thought they might start wrestling at some point, but because they never did. But this idea of this being perfectly normal behavior, that you would spy on someone's honeymoon, you would be so invested in their honeymoon that you would be worried about. The only thing I couldn't figure out was he worried that they weren't going to have sex, or was he worried that they were going to have sex?
Oh, he was
Yes.
definitely, there's a lot
So-
there. I will say, just as a side note before Mari gets into this, that we have seen some pillow fight wrestling matches, thankfully, in the past.
Yeah.
So maybe not completely out of the realm of possibility that could be what they got down to. Mari, just take it away.
So a little bit of
backstory.
Backstory. It's a long story because it's a storyline that has been going for months and months and months, and it culminated in a wedding 2 weeks ago on NXT 2.0, and this is like the follow-up. It's the honeymoon, but basically, Indy Hartwell, the one who was married with Dexter Lumis, she was a part of a faction called The Way, and Johnny and Candice, Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, the two people that were spying on them, they were like her big brother and big sister, and she was a part of that faction. And most of the storyline was them trying to get her away from Dexter Lumis, just because he was kind of a bad guy. He was just a silent assassin, really. But they fell in love, Romeo and Juliet style, and they finally accepted their relationship enough for them to get married. But Johnny and Candice, you saw Candice is pregnant. She's pregnant, and they just see Indy as like a little sister or a daughter, so they're always trying to protect her, especially Johnny. So for the last few weeks, Johnny's just been so overprotective of her. Like during they went to a bachelor party, and when she goes out on dates, he'll pose as the waiter, like really like Looney Tunes style shenanigans, to be quite honest. And it was just funny because we saw that they ended up on the honeymoon with them. It was like, why are y'all on the honeymoon with them? And Johnny was kind of trying to stop them from having sex, and Candice was like, you're not gonna stop them. And so then when he snuck into Dexter's, that's the wedding picture there, when he snuck into Dexter's room, and he was like, well, at least they have protection. And then at the end, when he's sneaking out and Dexter's just confirming with him, like, we're good, we got protection. And it's just really wacky stuff that, so again, some people don't like the fun part of wrestling, but I love the fun part of wrestling. And this was just a culmination to a very funny storyline. And I'm very interested to see what happens when they come back from the honeymoon. Like, does Indy finally start like getting into the women's division, and or does she stay in Dexter's corner? Do they come out together? Do they all four of them come out together? So it'll be really, really interesting to see. But I just love Index. They're hilarious.
Well, it's a great couple's name. But I heard you talked about their wedding on the podcast, so I was able to go. I listened to that, so I was able to figure out straight away that's who they were. And I remember you saying that because he never speaks, it was like incredible that he said I and then a long pause and then do. So I thought, oh, that's him. So I thought it was completely ridiculous, totally wacky, and yet endearing, human. Like, it's nothing. It's extreme, but it's not something that people don't do. People don't break into people's hotel rooms and spy on them in the honeymoon, but they do that. They do versions of that, of like, what are you doing on your honeymoon? Where are you going on your honeymoon? Tell me all about your honeymoon. So yeah, and I loved him just getting the door open of the hotel. You think that would never happen, but I must accept it, otherwise the story doesn't go on. So they take you along with them on this wacky story, and you don't ever think, oh no, that wouldn't happen, that's ridiculous, because it's just shenanigans. There's a wink, there's a nod, there's a, come along with us and kind of enjoy this this ridiculous thing. But Johnny inside the wardrobe with the pillow fight going on outside was fantastic.
Hilarious.
Real old school sitcom naughtiness, this idea of of sex being sort of naughty and really, you know, totally family, you know, friendly.
Friendly, yeah. Pillow fight.
Yeah, pillow fighting. But yes, yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was this was so fun to watch. I mean, Mari, you said it earlier, but the whole show of NXT 2.0 this week was fun to watch. And
really
you know,
was.
at the start of the segment where they were on the beach, I was getting some like Firefest promo video type of vibes, you know, like the tropical music, the fun, their hearts in the sand, Dexter's little Speedo, all of it.
Yes.
And you know, I even think that just all of it's so great. Johnny Gargano is so great. I forgot that Candice is pregnant, even watching that. So a great reminder too. And we were talking about this, but it's great that she could still be around and on the show, and they're finding ways to integrate her along the way, which is great. And I guess even apparently getting at least a day, you know, a nice day trip to the beach. Who can complain about that? So, you know, this was really awesome. And I'm very interested in where it goes, because it's the right combination of characters and personalities for it to not get old and for it to stay fresh.
Yes.
And it's definitely not stale, but there is a direction they could go. I don't know how they would get there, but there's definitely a direction they could go where it's like, okay, we get it. Like, they're sick of this. But Johnny Gargano is such a great foil almost for Dexter Lumis and Indy in this relationship, just with his discomfort, even though, you know, like it's so bizarre, but I love it. I love what they're doing here and going for.
Right. And I think my best guess would be, you know, Johnny and Candice will have to, you know, take time off once they get that baby. So until they leave, they'll give Index the rub for as long as possible.
Phrasing.
Well, you know what I mean. When we say rub, we mean like
Johnny would not be okay with that.
help them along, like help give them like some status, and then it'll be just Dexter and Indy. And I really hope we get like your traditional male wrestler valet type of deal. But I also, because I love a good manager valet or / valet, but we also did get, I forget her name, last week, Indy, they introduced somebody as Indy's, what could be Indy's tag team partner, another woman from Australia. I forgot her name already, but
was it
she
one
was
of her
just
bridesmaids?
I'm not sure, but they just briefly she had came on last week, and she's like, oh, when Indy comes back, you know, we're gonna, it just seemed like Indy might be in a women's tag team, and they need as many women's tag teams as possible. So,
and I hope that it's flipped, by the way. I hope that they have, because traditionally we'll see the woman, the women's, I'll say the women's talent, like accompanying the men. But
I hope it's back and forth. I should have said.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get both ways, because they're both wrestlers. But it would be interesting to see Dexter, you know, accompanying and supporting Indy.
Right.
And just to see
I just think Dexter's character needs it more, because he doesn't talk. So to have a mouthpiece for him would possibly be ideal.
Yeah, he needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah, sorry. So next up, we had the premiere of Lashing Out with Lash Legend. So Lash Legend, formerly known, real name Andrielle Howard. She made her debut with her new talk show called Lashing Out, and it was a really cool segment. It was like Wendy Williams. She did like a Wendy Williams style show, which was actually pretty cool, because in WWE and in wrestling, people get talk shows all the time where they come out to the ring, they have a setup, and they're like, it's so and so, it's the Peep Show with Christian, it's Miz TV with Miz. But I thought this was kind of special, because it was like taped in the back, she had like pictures popping up over her shoulder, very, very like Wendy Williams gossip calling, like, "Ooh, did you hear this?" And then she had the audience who's like, "Ooh," like, I thought this was really, really cool. And I think you can go so many places with this before she even has to get into the ring, because again, just like Bfab and Elektra Lopez, she is a rookie through and through. She points out during lashing out that she was a, I think she was a SEC like rebounding. She has a rebounding record for the SEC. So she was drafted by the WNBA. I think she played for them for a few years, and now she's here in WWE. WWE loves to get like athletes that are still young, professional athletes that are still young, and bring them over. And so she's here. I think this is great. It's a talk show. She was talking about Cora Jade and Cora Jade's boyfriend. So I really like this, just because it can go so many ways. They can have her come on. She can introduce the segments. She can get her face out there while she's still working on the in-ring stuff. We've never seen her in ring yet. And I think that would be great to let her build this first and then put her in the ring. So I just really like this. Sarah, what did you think? At this point, you're gotta be like, where are all the matches?
No, not at all. No, I was along for the ride. I mean, you started me off with Lashley and Big E, so like I was full. I was satiated. First of all, her name is fabulous, Lash Legend. Why not? I'm glad to know it was her debut. I think she's really got something there. It's very cute, because I was trying to think, where are they? There was backstage. She had a background. She had a little audience, I think, like a little real audience, because I was thinking, where could this be that this has happened? And then I realized, obviously, it's just backstage. It's going to be this small segment. I like the idea of segments. She will grow into it. I think she was a little nervous and trying to remember all the things she was going to say. It was a little bit rehearsed. I mean, there is something in the way that wrestlers do talk that has that heightened sort of rehearsed quality. But for her, she's rushing a little bit, and she was overemphasizing things, which is a very wrestler thing. So she's got that already. But I think there's something very, you're very drawn to her. There's something very, even having said she was slightly stilted, there's something very natural about her. So I was pleased it was a debut, because again, like the girls that I now know were rookies, women. I just did that. I hate it when women athletes are called girls, and I just did it to them.
At least we haven't called them females yet. So
no.
I hate it.
But I think, and it could be, they could use it in that outfit. The houndstooth check is fabulous. A little hat, the cocktail with her name on the side, the chair. I just think it's a very clever way to, if you say that they're building her up to work in the ring, it's a way of introducing her to us. We get to know her. Plus, they can get lots of little snippets and tidbits across that will help with other stories. I imagine she can drop little gossip moments that will come into other stories. So no, I thought this is really promising. I wasn't fully on board, but that was sort of my director's eye. But I thought, yes, this is really promising.
Yeah, and I think like the Mari mentioned the Wendy Williams inspiration, and I definitely got that, but I also got some other vibes. I was getting a little bit of like Hillary Banks, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was getting a little bit of like Stacey Dash and her character in Clueless. Like I was getting those vibes, and some other kind of like with the cocktail, like some Sex in the City, and so it was a mix of all of these different things, but definitely drawing from the Wendy Williams side of things. So, I mean, we'll see how things develop, but it's cool. It's good to get people out there and give them a chance to learn to shine rather than them being perfect from the beginning. Like imagine Lash Legend getting 5 of these segments before actually debuting in the ring, and just having that time to get comfortable in the character, establish a rapport, see how the fans react on social media, watch it back, adapt, connect with the audience. And I don't even mean the in-person, in-studio audience here, which is probably just a bunch of wrestlers and their family members, who knows. But, you know, really just start to kind of get comfortable beforehand. NXT 2.0 is doing a ton to put out all these newer faces and give them a chance to develop. And it's fun to see that, because again, we get to see the progression when we get to see people so early on before they're like truly ready for the main spotlight, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So we also got Toxic Attraction. Toxic Attraction had made their presence felt last week. They basically came out. They said they're going to take over the women's division. So this week they had a title match. They first had a title match against Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. They took on Gigi Dolan and JC Jane in the title match. And I also put Raquel Gonzalez and Frankie Monet had a WWE, an NXT women's title match that then at the end of it, Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction came out and beat up both of them, with Mandy Rose standing tall above Raquel Gonzalez holding the belt. So this is basically Toxic Attraction storyline. They seem like they're coming to take over the women's division. I just want to talk about the women's tag match first and foremost. Io Shirai and Zoe Stark have been the women's tag team champions for a few months now, but they barely wrestled on NXT.
Yeah.
And instead we were given all these vignettes of Zoe trying to connect with Io in very slightly problematic ways, of Zoe Stark trying to eat sushi with Io Shirai. And once they got back into the ring, I was like, this is why you guys put the belt on them. Like, they can just really go. Like, they are, as of right now, Io Shirai, who is considered one of the best women's wrestler in the world, is teaming up with Zoe Stark, who is also an not indie legend.
Whoa.
I mean, not compared to Io Shirai. Like, Io Shirai is legit called the best women's wrestler in the world. And Zoe Stark, who is an indie wrestler who has tons of experience. The reason why they got the belts, which I almost forgot because they haven't been putting them on TV, was because they're so good in the ring, and they're so good in the ring together. So I was like, thank you for finally putting them back in the ring, because at first I was like, why do they still have the belts? You know? And you can see the match quality just completely take off, because again, they're going up against Gigi Dolan, who had the bright orange hair here, Sarah, and JC Jane, who I don't know why I think they darkened JC Jane's hair, because it wasn't that dark last week, but whatever. Who are both women who are indie wrestlers who have been wrestling on the independent scene for years now. And you could just tell this was a great match. And although I really want Io on the main roster, I'm really hoping she gets drafted on Monday. I see why they kept the belts. I do see why her and Zoe kept the belts here. So, but Toxic Attraction still, I think they still like did they beat them up afterwards? I can't remember. But Io Shirai, Zoe Stark walk away, still the women's tag team champions. And I'm just afraid overall what's going to happen, because it's a catch-22, because I want Io on the main roster. She shouldn't have even been in the developmental brand. She should have kind of just went straight to the main roster, which is Raw or SmackDown. But I also think if she leaves, who is the experienced hand here in NXT to guide the women's locker room? Because
Mandy Rose.
I wish that was joking. That was my fear. That was my fear. Yeah. So I don't know. So let me take a step back. Just the tag team title match here, Sarah. What did you think about what you saw here?
Well, I love the name Toxic Attraction.
Yes,
it's fantastic. What I noted there was what I hadn't seen a lot of in these clips. I mean, there's like posturing and eyes and excuse my voice, and sort of threatening, but they actually use that brilliant line, "You need to calm down." Never, ever has telling someone to calm down ever made them calm down. So it's like this fantastic encapsulation of that passage. Like, I particularly used on people who are already calm. It's like just guarantees that you're going to ginger them up. So I liked that. They were slamming about, is what I felt. So I don't know whether that's. I was looking for more. I was looking for finesse, I suppose. But again, if you're telling me that we're in a division that is developmental, then that again makes complete sense.
Yeah, this was definitely a lot more high flying for the women. With Io Shirai and Zoe doing a lot of like high flying moves here. But it did make Toxic Attraction kind of look like goobers in a sense, just against Io and Zoe. Like they had no chance here.
I mean, I thought I was watching I wouldn't have been surprised if they won this match just because
I thought they were.
Shift. I thought they were going to win too because they haven't had, like, this was the debut of Zoe Stark and Io Shirai on NXT 2.0, which has been around a few weeks, and they're pointing this out, like, where have they been? Where have they been? And it's because they haven't been booked on the show and put in matches. So it did seem like they might have gone with a shift, especially to set up the challenge that Mandy Rose would have for Raquel Gonzalez's championship.
Later.
But exactly. But that it was really interesting to see this. And to your point about like the experienced hands on the roster, they still have a number of people who are really experienced on the roster who could help develop some of these others. I hope that they have more experienced women that they bring in, but like I think of Dakota Kai and some others. I won't go down the list now, but
Dakota's going up, I think. As she should.
She should. Sad times.
Yeah. Well, so that's a perfect transition because we got Raquel Gonzalez versus Frankie Monet for the NXT Women's Championship match. And I'm slightly disappointed that Frankie didn't win this. Only because if we're going to talk about a firm hand here, Frankie Monet, also known as Taya Valkyrie, is also one of the greatest women's independent wrestlers to come to WWE. I'm a huge Frankie Monet fan. I've said it so many times. Sarah, I wish I could have sent you her intro. I just love her intro and her theme music. It's very reminiscent of like Trish Stratus's to me. But I said all that to say because Raquel Gonzalez has been the women's champion it's been a very long time. I have not been a fan of it. I have not liked her title run. She is also herself again green. She debuted in the second Mae Young Women's Classic, which was in 2018. So she's been active for 3 years now. She is homegrown talent for WWE. So she actually got to do the NXT live circuits and stuff like that. So she is better. Raquel Gonzalez is better than like Bfab or Elektra Lopez or Lash Legend, all of the really, really new girls. But she's still, to me, very limited in what she can do. And I have not liked any of her feuds during her reign, including the Dakota feud is probably the closest I've gotten to caring about any of her titles. And this match here with Frankie was also just kind of like meh as well. So Raquel, she kept the title, and I don't know what they're gonna do with her now.
She kept the title, but I think she lost a bra strap.
Yes, she did, which was very awkward.
Oh wow!
You didn't notice that, Matt? She like her bra strap popped in the middle of the match, so I was wondering if they had to change the ending of the match. But I don't think so because I thought maybe they'd have to rush the end, but it seemed like everything matched up when it still came like time wise. Like NXT didn't like it went over a little bit. But the good thing is that if they did have to change it, Frankie Monet was in there, and she is a really good wrestler who can adapt on the fly. And I don't know if you saw this, but at one point, Frankie, who is, I don't even know who's supposed to be the heel in this situation. Like,
Frankie's supposed to be the heel, especially with the. I mean, and I'm
You're
with
right.
you, Mari.
She's supposed to be.
But I think especially with Robert Stone and
Jessie Kamea.
Jessie Kamea, yes, yeah, with them there
on the outside.
Yeah.
But I did love that at one point she was screaming to Raquel Gonzalez in Spanish, which is a nod to Taya Valkyrie. You know, Frankie Monet's old name was Taya Valkyrie, and she used to wrestle in Mexico. She used to wrestle at Lucha Underground. Like, she has traveled the world as a wrestler. So I thought that was so cool. And then for Raquel to come back to her and you know, speak to her in Spanish before delivering a move was very funny. Grade A heel work from Frankie Monet there. Yeah.
So there were like a whole lot of people around. There was a very intriguing woman wearing half a suit.
Yes, and that's Jessie Kamea.
Yes.
I loved some of these side characters that come in suits and then suddenly they're either being attacked or they attack. So I liked all that sort of chaos. I love those furry boots. I wrote down furry boots.
Amazing.
I mean, just fantastic. But I mean, you can see their match. She's holding her left hand over her breast. She's protecting the bra top from coming down. She did very well in covering it up. I just suppose that we noticed it. So she had a lot of times her hand had to come just across her chest like that.
Exactly. But it was serviceable, and all it was a vehicle to get Mandy Rose there to look like she might be the next one to challenge Raquel, and we shall see. Because I could definitely see Raquel going up to the main roster as well, because I'm pretty sure Vince likes her. Raquel is a very sizable woman. She's a part of that group of Bianca and Rhea who were celebrated as the new era of women's wrestling. So I can definitely see her being called up to the main roster eventually. Now, does that mean she gives the title to Mandy Rose and then she gets called up? That would be interesting, because like I said, Mandy Rose is also she's homegrown talent. She was on Tough Enough 2015. So she has been a wrestler for 6 years now. However, and she's been on the main roster. She's back down to NXT now. Mandy Rose is a serviceable wrestler. She's grown in this last 6 years, but she still has never felt like she's reached that next level to me. But this is the whole point of her NXT run. She went back down to NXT in order to reach that next level. So maybe that'll be it. But again, if she's the experienced hand, I don't know. Like, I really want somebody who is really, really experienced to help that really baby women's division, because that women's division now, that if Dakota's gone, if Raquel goes, Candice LeRae is pregnant, like the experience level just dropped dramatically. You know what I'm saying? And the only person I can think of is Ember Moon. We haven't seen Ember Moon. She's been tweeting very cryptically. She is a former NXT Women's Champion. She has been wrestling again around the world for years. She's been with WWE itself for since 2018-ish, so at least 3 years here at WWE. So she knows WWE style, plus been able to wrestle from before then. So she would be a good, and then she can also put on great matches with anybody. She is one of those women's wrestlers who can put on good matches. So I would wonder if maybe they would reintroduce her and maybe have her, if Mandy Rose takes the belt, maybe have her chase and take the belt off of Mandy Rose, because I really think that's what they need. I think if the whole division is super young and super green, I think you need a champion that can wrestle and make them look good. And that is my biggest fear. And that's what I mean by I'm afraid. Because Sarah, there are some wrestlers, male and female, I can say them both, that can literally wrestle anybody and have a great match with them.
Mm-hmm.
You actually saw one of them this week. I wonder if you can guess who a little bit later. But there are some wrestlers who can't. They can have great matches with some people and not so great matches with other people. And as so far, that's what Mandy Rose has been. So far, that's what Raquel Gonzalez has been. And if you want to make that division look good, you need somebody who can make that division look good. So that's me just, of course, going on and on about NXT 2.0
Well,
ladies night.
I'll also say, I'll just put out there, like, a lot of people have not had the opportunity to look good or to shine. So maybe we will get to see a lot of people who kind of step up. And this is an opportunity for Mandy Rose to step up into that spot and say, you know, I am a lot more experienced than a lot of these people. Or to look at the other people and say, how could we make this work? Because we know the shoulders that we're standing on. So I feel hopeful. I also think about the trainers that they have, or really the really assistant head coach of NXT, or really of the Performance Center, which is the developmental territory for WWE. Sarah Amato, otherwise known as Sarah Del Rey, who is just like a phenomenal wrestler who we've never actually seen wrestle in WWE, which drives me a little bit crazy. But she's incredible, and I believe in her to help them shine. And she's gotten so many kudos from like everybody around her that I feel good about what we're going to see. But I see what you're saying, Mari. We don't want just matches like Bfab versus Elektra Lopez. We want matches where it's like elevated and at that like main event, main roster level, really.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's so clear, Mari, that you're just passionate about the development of these these young women, these inexperienced women. And you're absolutely right. You do need someone who that they can learn from, but also that can make them look good in a match, so that the matches are then exciting for the audience, so that the inexperienced women get the idea of that back and forth with the audience. I think it all you know, it's a whole package. And I hear your fear that there won't be that right woman there for them to look up to and learn from.
Yeah, because
the one thing, Mari.
I know, the one thing that WWE can really single-handedly hold over their other competitors is that they have so many great women's wrestlers. Like the women's wrestling in WWE is held to such a high standard. And that's why I'm like, I want to hold these women to this standard. And I think that, like Matt said, with all the training that can be provided, they can get up to that level as these women that we're so used to seeing. The pressure is on.
Let me just bring in the point that I keep making that's not going to happen, but it's like, okay, bring in some women from the past even who might be interesting. Like, I don't know who that is exactly. I don't think it's that important because there are a lot of great options, but I think that the one piece beyond the quality of the in-ring work, because we've talked about this a ton, is just like bring in people who the fans want to watch so that it also draws eyes to the product and to what's happening in the ring. Like there are people who are going to like just skip over the Bfab Elektra Lopez match, but then maybe if you bring in someone who's more seasoned and well-known, then people will tune in more. So that's another element of it to keep in mind. And I mean, we'll see what they do, but hopefully they figure it out and it doesn't become purely developmental and they have a good balance, good mix.
Yeah. And so we have to move along here because a lot of stuff happened this week and we want to try and get to it all. So next up we have AEW, and this is just a quick aside. I definitely wanted to highlight AEW Dynamite this week, just because they really did just celebrate the life of Brody Lee here. They were in Rochester, New York, which is Brody Lee's hometown. Brody Lee, whose real name is John Huber, passed away this past December.
Yeah.
While he was like working, not so while he was working at AEW, he wasn't at AEW when he passed away. He just passed away. This is their first time touring again, and this was their first time back in Rochester. So they wanted to dedicate parts of the show to him. And so one of the first things they did is they had a 16-man tag match, which I have never seen in my entire life. I don't think.
I think we have a few times.
But feels like I was like 16 people.
It does not happen often.
It was 8 versus 8. The Dark Order and Orange Cassidy. The Dark Order. Brody Lee was the founder of the Dark Order. They say they teamed with Orange Cassidy to take on the Matt Hardy family office, which is just an amalgam of wrestlers. It's just a lot of them.
Yeah, that was overwhelming as a side note, and even just visually looking at
so
in the ring, and I'm sure that I can imagine that this stood out to you, Sarah, but just the what is this motley crew
what is happening,
people?
Right?
Well, it was. I mean, it was so story heavy, wasn't it? It's the idea of, and I googled Brody Lee, and I realized what they were doing. I sort of thought it was wonderful, but it was more story than wrestling somehow.
Definitely.
With the severe widow, with I'm assuming with the pearls and negative one, the idea that Dark Orders come back together. And she insists that they shake hands and all of that. So, yeah, it was. I thought it was good, but they're slightly falling between two stools. That they wanted to go heavy on the story, but they also wanted this kind of largeness of the wrestling, and we sort of lost the wrestling a bit, I think. But this is my first time looking at stuff, but that's sort of what it seemed to me. I really liked the story, but I was sort of longing at that point for more of the athleticism and finesse that I'd seen in the earlier matches, which again, with one-on-one, it's easier to see. But
right.
Yeah.
And this is Sarah, this is AEW. So this isn't WWE. This is WWE's competitor. This is a completely different wrestling entity show. Could you tell the difference? Or was it just like you may could have thought it was another WWE product under another title?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that I saw that it was a different product, but I certainly in what I said to you, that kind of very whereas with the first group of highlights that we saw, the story was in service of the wrestling to spice it, to motivate it, to make us emotionally attached one way or another. Here I felt it was the other way around. The wrestling was in service of the story. And I found that, much though I loved the story, I found that, I mean, look at that. I found that strangely less satisfying. And I come from, a narrative performance background, so you'd think I'd be wanting the story. But what I discovered was that it has to be in service of the wrestling.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is if you do not watch the product, you don't emotionally connect to it. You know what I'm saying? Which is harsh. I don't want to come off harsh because they were legit honoring the life of one of their friends and stuff like that. But that is one of the problems when it comes to AEW that I know I said I've had, that our guests who are new have problems with. They expect you to know the backstory. So when they present a storyline to you, it's because they assume you already know the backstory. And if you don't know the backstory, or if you already aren't connected to it, it's harder for you to grasp what's going on. And AEW fans like that. They feel like WWE spoon feeds people. They say that WWE spoon feeds you storylines and they're constantly recapping stuff. And it's like I don't need a recap because I'm here every week, with
Right.
AEW. But it should be something to be said about like reaching a broader audience and how it's really hard for your broader audience to understand what is going on if you don't at least try to halfway explain what's happening. But I mean, again, with the Brody Lee stuff, -1, that Brody's son and Amanda Huber, his wife, being involved in this storyline because it's something that means so much to them and it's done in such a respectful way. We have to give that up to AEW because it was very tastefully done. We later
Yeah.
got a match with Tay Conti and Anna Jay against Penelope Ford, and I forget the other lady's name. My bad, y'all. But basically, it was again just a tag match. So Tay and Anna Jay, who were also a part of Dark Order, could share a moment with Brody Lee's son, -1. Matt, what did you think about the tribute to Brody Lee?
Here the thing is, like, I don't it's weird because I think that in one way you made a lot of great points about it, Mari, where I think that if you know,
Right.
and it translates, but there is a lot where I just wish what I was thinking about truly, maybe this is like the way to frame it, is I was thinking how like what's the best way to really communicate to Sarah or to someone who's new to the product the weight of this and the importance of this. I will say just to start with the Dark Order storyline, because I was even going back and looking at some clips of that to see how we could plug that in, and there wasn't that like there in the last couple months, especially, which is when this Dark Order breakup storyline has been coming together. There hasn't been a connection between like Brody Lee and his legacy and their breakup. Like that's kind of been unrelated. And so to me, it was a little bit strange to have that as part of this story. But I guess it's a beautiful point to have Brody Lee as the reason that his legacy is the reason that they decide to work together and get past those things,
even for just
but
one night.
even if it's just one night, right? And hopefully it lasts a lot longer than that with that motivation, right? But I would say too that specifically with the Tay Conti Anna Jay stuff, I don't think that fully translates, but I mean, like there are people who are diehard fans who follow along, who are keeping up with it, and it makes sense. I guess that it's just like I wish that there would be a little bit more honoring him and more like more to make it so that it makes sense for people who don't know why he's being honored, because I think that the wrestling world felt so deeply for him when across companies, across WWE, where he was for years and years and years, across AEW, across everywhere. And, I would love for people who didn't know who he was to really kind of like fall in love with him and the character he was and all that he was bringing, because it was really so dynamic and creative. Last year, especially when he was in AEW. So that's my thought. But I mean, I'm in a really positive note. I'm thankful that they did this and that they at least made it so that if you didn't know him, then you're looking him up. You're looking up his matches. You're doing more of that. And yeah, that's all I would say about that, really. But it's better. It's good that they did a big something rather than, not do anything at all, or rather than just wink and nod to him and his legacy.
Exactly. And it was just good for the fans to be able to mourn him. His hometown crowd to be able to mourn him, because this is the first time they're getting a chance to really in person and all of that. So our deepest condolences to Amanda Huber and his son -1. And I think he has 2 sons, I want to say.
How old is that child? I mean, he doesn't fit on a forearm anymore, but
No.
he looked maybe like 12 or about 11 or 12 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah,
He was very proud. I think I suppose I was drawn to him and the whole sort of show through his experience of, his father being so beloved and everybody in the audience with signs and this kind of production, and that he was part of it. I thought was extraordinary for him, because however old he is a very young person. So
I know he's about 8 or 9 years old.
that's what I was.
Oh,
Yeah, that was
oh,
going to be my
sorry, yeah.
guess.
I don't know how old children are.
Yeah.
he had a mask on too. So.
No, I know. I liked that. I thought that was fantastic, because it was sort of they just took the exploitative part out of it. That he was masked.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually.
Yeah, he's 8 or 9. Yeah.
I was thinking about that, like the emotion on his face, and or not on his face, but he went through something so tough in losing his dad. And I lost my dad a few years ago, but I cannot relate to being an 8-year-old losing your dad and being in that situation, and being on really on TV all over the world, and being in such a visible place. So I'm thankful that he's wearing the mask too, just like that. I think that it makes it so he's able to enjoy the experience without without even just like the trauma of like watching whatever he's going through, the emotion of it. And Amanda, did such an incredible job too with all of this, and she's been incredible with the wrestling community. I've seen her name pop up a lot, and so I'm so glad that they're supporting this family so much and integrating so much. And that's just one of my big notes, the fact that -1, aka Brody Lee Jr., I'll say, was part of this and is still part of this, even though his dad passed away in December. It's amazing that they're still making a spot, and I'm sure that AEW is doing whatever they can to like support and take care of and show love to that family. So that is insanely heartwarming, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no danger of that child not being involved in wrestling in some way or another, I would have thought.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's a situation of, if he didn't want to do it and he said, I'm tired of this, I want to leave, then he's out of it. I'm positive of that,
Yeah, Anna Huber was talking about how him being a part of it really helped him through it. She thanked a lot of the wrestlers for being there for her, and because his death was, sudden from what little we know of it. It was not something that anybody saw coming. And Amanda also thanked Biggie. Biggie and John Huber were really close friends, and they said that Biggie really helped. Anna said that Biggie really helped following the days of his death, and when Biggie won the championship about, what was it, 3 weeks ago, Matt, something like that, he attributed it to John Huber as well. So it just goes to show you that Brody Lee, aka John Huber, really touched everybody he came in contact with in the wrestling community. So the fact that he's still getting honored, again and again and again, it makes so much sense, because it's what he deserves, and it's how everybody is coping with his loss, and how they are continuing his legacy. And that they were selling shirts to support his foundation. So it was just touching. I'm kind of choking up just thinking about it. And it that is one amazing thing, that AEW has been doing a really good job of taking care of his family. Definitely. So we're glad to see that, and glad that the fans got to be there to help along with that. But the final clip I want to go over in AEW though. So Cody and Lee Johnson had a match against Dante Martin. I forget their group's name, but anyways, Cody was looking like he was getting beat up a lot in that clip, but Lee Johnson saved the day. Cody and Lee Johnson won the match. But after the match, Arn Anderson got on the mic.
So bizarre.
Very, very weird. Arn Anderson, Cody Rhodes, Lee Johnson are in the Nightmare family. It's the faction that Cody started in AEW, and Arn is like their coach or whatever. But basically, Cody tried to call out Malachi Black, who Cody's been facing and getting beat up the past few weeks. And Arn Anderson was like, "Leave him alone. You're grasping at straws." He then starts to badmouth Cody, calling Cody like all types of loser and all of this. At one point, he kind of calls Cody soft, and then talks about how if somebody were to rob Cody, Cody would let him rob them. But Arn Anderson would take out a Glock and point it at the person's
quote unquote
head and pull the trigger. And he calls Cody a loser, tells Lee Johnson, "Let's get out of here." So apparently Cody might be kicked out of the Nightmare family. Him and Arn Anderson at least split up. What is happening here, guys? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, Sarah, tell us what's happening.
It was so ugly that if somebody comes and asks for your car, you'll give it to them, but I'll pull out my Glock and kill them over a car.
Yeah, you might just like
it was just such a strange. It was such a strange. I don't know. I found it distasteful.
Right.
And I was really taken aback. Well, because when you think about like wrestling and people throwing each other around and breaking their shoulders and jumping on them and everything, it's really strange to say then I was repelled by violence when I was enjoying the wrestling. But it was the violence of that, and also that I mean, and having said, that even though there's this hypermasculinity and all of that, that I see a softness and a grace and a flexibility, this incredible toxicity of, if I call you soft, you are lesser than, you're not a man. And I'm a man because I have a gun and I'll shoot someone in the face. I found it really, I couldn't process it very well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So I rely on you, my guides in this to tell me what I should be thinking.
Yeah, it's bizarre just because, I mean, it's bizarre from a number of levels, but it just brings in something that is not pro wrestling at all. Like, we don't have wrestlers pulling, there have been not real well, okay, there I'm sure have been situations backstage in wrestling years and decades back, let's think,
back when it was Wild West
pulled on them, back in that era of wrestling. I mean,
actually Arn's
era of wrestling when he was an active competitor so many decades ago. And actually, I think that this was the type of thing that Mari and I were talking about earlier this year when we were talking about The Undertaker, who is one of the most famous wrestlers.
Even I've heard of
he was making the comment. He was making a comment about, back in my day, you used to pull out a knife on somebody in the locker room. This was not in the performance, but he was talking about what it was like. And what's like in the context of the characters and the story you're telling in the show, like, I mean, Arn Anderson, you should just give away I don't know if you have a gun on you right now, which is a whole other issue, but you should probably just give your car away, sir.
Yes.
You could probably replace that. Cody Cody has a family. He literally just had a baby. Like, why would we make it? This is, I think, the thing for me that bothers me the most. It's that we would make it seem that doing something that preserves your safety potentially and allows you to live another day to spend time with your family is dumb or weak or not masculine enough. And we don't care for that in wrestling, and that's why I think that this didn't really translate. I think a lot of people had a weird reaction to this segment, which is a great thing, and it would be more concerning if people were like, oh yeah, let's all carry guns and make sure that we don't get carjacked. Like, what is going on? What is going on? Someone needs to watch like someone needs to make sure that they check what people are going to say before they say it in this company, because that's been a problem lately.
Sarah, did you want to follow up before I talk a little bit?
No, I just get everybody within the sound of my voice. If somebody is offering you violence, give them the thing that you want, not your body, but anything else.
No,
a
not
car,
that. Yeah.
money. I don't know if you've ever been held up. I've been held up in a shop. Just let them have it. It doesn't make you any less. Yeah.
Exactly. So
it does not.
It just doesn't make sense. And it's kind of funny in a sense, because like Goldberg politely said he was going to kill Bobby Lashley.
I mean,
in front of a picture of his son, but that's made sense contextually. Yeah, and it could be seen as, oh, I'm gonna kill you, like, you know, like in how you talk about when you're fighting somebody, like when you like in real world fighting, you know, people yell, I'm gonna kill you, when their intent is maybe not to kill you. You know, he even said, I really want to beat you up very badly, maybe even kill you. But the picture that was painted here with Arn Anderson actually like pretending to take a gun out, pointed at Cody's head. Like, why would you want to evoke that kind of visual reaction? Not to mention here in America, where gun violence is a rising problem, especially among the main demographic that AEW caters to. I don't care. That's what I just said that.
That's the bigger issue. That is one of the bigger issues. Like, I mean, this, like, just to say it flat out, AEW, and I was thinking about this the other day too, for one of my friends, Ryan, who loves AEW, which AEW and a lot of what they do is actually really great. I've talked about it before, but they have a race problem. They have a diversity problem. Like, everything we've seen with WWE is wild, how much like diversity there is of the not only the characters, but like the performers. And it's just not cute. It's not cute. AEW just needs to like maybe be a little bit more mindful of that and kind of the messages that they're putting out there, because it doesn't really work. And I mean, there's so much to say that we don't even need to say, but like the US school shootings, all of that, like we don't need that encouraged, right?
And it was the naming of the gun as well, you know, the very deliberate, you know, saying that it was a clock. I mean, it's a you know, precision German engineering, but you know, and the interesting thing, like on a bigger level too, is that men who speak like that don't realize it makes them very small. Except perhaps, as you say, to their audience who might say, yeah, that's what I do too. Whereas yes, it was very hard to digest.
But there's also no reason that Arn Anderson needs to get over or seem big, like, or to build himself up. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, what's this in service of? Is he going to get back in the ring and fight for the world championship? Like, this is not doing anything for anybody. It
didn't make sense. It didn't make sense in the context of the storyline. That if one thing that really grinds my gears is it didn't make sense in the context of the storyline.
Yeah.
Point
exactly.
blank, period.
I mean,
point blank, period. At least with Goldberg and Bobby Lashley, again, it was an amping up because Bobby Lashley put his hands on Goldberg's son. You know, Arn Anderson just using this story of gun violence to call Cody soft and to like lead to not be his manager anymore. Just did not seem like it needed to go that route. Like, everything he said up until that could have serviced as to why he doesn't want to be Cody's manager. Why did we have to involve gun violence? You know, some of the wrestling fans kind of like made it funny online, and it was like, oh, I see a whole bunch of armed Anderson and all of that, and some people are just like in shock of what they heard. But it's just like, I don't see why this was necessary, and honestly, it feels like it's not getting that much coverage. It's definitely not getting as much coverage as when we talked about like the Max Caster promo or anything like that. So he hasn't issued any apology or been asked to or anything that I know of. So It just was disappointing, and it was just like we didn't need to do this. Like we really
No.
didn't.
So and it's totally the type of thing that will be not even brushed over, but it won't get the attention and response that it deserves because the audience isn't the audience like that will hold them accountable for this. I mean, prove me wrong, please. But that's the thing that's kind of scary. And, you know, like obviously there's a big difference between performed, choreographed, quote unquote violence, or, you know, what we see in the wrestling rings. Cause like, that's like what we see in wrestling is not how people fight. There's a big difference between that and some of the other things we've seen. We've nailed this point home, but
yeah, we gotta
move it
on.
Reaction we have to this, you know.
Yeah. We gotta move it along. So that's all we're gonna cover for AEW this week. Well, in this segment right here. So let's move on to SmackDown, which had the WWE draft. Time to shake things up. So I kept forgetting that the draft was happening, even though I knew it was happening. It was one of those things that was like, you know it's happening, but then you forget, and then it happens. So to open up, SmackDown had the first. Oh, sorry. I should also say before we go on, all of the highlights can be found in the playlist below. You know, everything that we talked about, Raw, AEW, SmackDown, you can find it in a very easy to digest playlist, and you can watch along with us in the show notes or the description. But we got the SmackDown draft here. The first overall pick for SmackDown was Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, the Universal Champion, who is, of course, currently on SmackDown. So SmackDown used their first pick to retain him, basically. We then got Raw drafting Big E, who is also the WWE Champion. So again, they're protecting their champion there. Big E was already on Raw, so they're protecting their champion. But then we got SmackDown drafting Charlotte, who is currently the Raw Women's Champion. So I was like, okay, which this happens in this happens in some drafts, you know.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah. But the kind of interesting part was the next draft pick was Bianca Belair. So Bianca Belair got drafted to Raw. She is currently a SmackDown superstar who was formerly the SmackDown Women's Champion. So for SmackDown to draft Charlotte, who is the current Raw Women's Champion, but then, you know, Becky, who is the SmackDown Women's Champion, not get poached to Raw, was kind of like, oh, what's going on here? But then, of course, like in our first video, what's her name? Mackenzie? I don't know. The reporter lady. All of the reporters are new.
As a side note,
Megan Morant.
Oh, yeah, Megan
Morant. My bad.
Yes.
There was a Mackenzie girl, but like some of those, like, anyways, Megan Morant explains that, of course, during the WWE draft, it's been like this a few years, that half of the roster will be drafted on SmackDown, and the other half will be drafted on Raw. And so the pool of eligibility is limited. So we find out later in the night that Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks were not eligible to be drafted tonight. So we'll see where they go on Monday. Right. So after that, we got Drew McIntyre was drafted to SmackDown. He was on Raw. And we got RK Bro, the current Raw Tag Team Champions, were retained on Raw because they were drafted to Raw. We then got the New Day drafted to SmackDown, which pissed a lot of people off because, again, Big E is on Raw and New Day is now back to SmackDown. So they split the New Day again, right when the New Day and Big E, you know, we felt like they were hitting their strides being on the same brand, and they split them again, which sucks. But we understand that they want Big E to stand on his own feet, but still, I really love them, all three of them always being together. So it kind of really does suck that they're going to be split again, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like literally they're together. It's so strange how this stuff works because they're together now, but they're not technically on the same brand. But
well, when
who
Big
cares?
E
Just show
became
up
the
anyway. Buy tickets to the show and go support him anyway.
when
That's
Big
what
E
I would love
became
to
the
see.
Raw champion, they automatically were back on the same brand together. So that's why it
It-
was okay. But
yeah, they do whatever they want in, like, I feel like in WWE to justify these things. Like, there's
exactly.
never really a hard line where, like, if someone just showed up on the other show, it's not like there's a penalty, or that
Yeah.
back in the day, like when they first started the draft, maybe they would have had security drag them out, but that's just not it. They're
Yeah.
very flexible with their rules.
Yeah, and Sarah, with the brand split, when they split them to the different brands, they have to who's going to be on each brand. So when they say you're on SmackDown, that person is on SmackDown. They have to stay on SmackDown. They don't go to Raw like normally. Like Matt said, there might be some crossover, but there rarely isn't. I mean, they try to keep it cut and dry. And the difference there is it's because they also travel to different cities. So this is also why they try to keep married couples together on the same brand, because if the married couples are separated, then they have different off days, they have different days where they're at different cities, and they travel like 300 plus days a year. They're like always traveling. I think they only get like, yeah, they're constantly traveling. But anyway, so let me just keep going through this, because we're just going to go through the draft, and then we're going to get through the matches that happened during that broadcast. We also got Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. They stayed on SmackDown. They were drafted to SmackDown. Edge, who was on SmackDown, got drafted to Raw. Rhea Ripley and Nikki at Ash, whatever they're calling her, they are the Raw. I mean, they are the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, so they are staying on Raw as of right now. We got Naomi is going to SmackDown, which, I mean, she's drafted to SmackDown. She's gonna stay on SmackDown. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but amazing.
She's been there. Wait,
yeah.
I'm confused. So, I mean, I guess it's good that she is drafted. Actually, this is not Naomi specific, but so if you're not drafted, you just stay where you are, right?
No, I'll talk about that in a second as well, because we got a little bit of updates.
Because I know there'll be like some time that they could shift, but
So Jeff Hardy, it was the final pick for SmackDown, and then Raw. On the Raw side, they drafted Keith Bearcat Lee, who we saw was already on Raw. The Mysterios, Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio, are now going to Raw from SmackDown. And then Austin Theory is on Raw as well, which he was last seen on NXT with Candice and Johnny. But so the way it goes is, not only were only half of the people eligible to be drafted last night, the rest of the roster, well, another set of the roster will be drafted on Monday, but anybody who is not drafted is considered a free agent, and they can sign with whatever brand of their choosing. So WWE did tweet out some more signings for free agents that I'm going to read real quickly. I'm just going to go through. So SmackDown just signed Aaliyah, Drew Gulak, Mace.
Whoa.
Right. Mace, Mustafa Ali, and Mansoor.
Okay.
And Tony Storm. So Tony Storm stays on SmackDown there. Mustafa Ali and Mansoor stay together, going to SmackDown, but they split Mason T-Bar. Because, and I know that for a fact, because T-Bar was signed to Raw. So they love to split tag teams during the draft for no discernible reason. And it looks like Mason T-Bar just got that treatment. So Reggie, the 24/7 champion Reggie, is going to stay on Raw. Akira Tozawa, who we just saw get squashed by Bearcat Lee, is going to stay on Raw. The Alpha Academy, Chad Gable and Otis, are going to Raw from SmackDown. Apollo and Commander Aziz
Right.
are going to Raw, which is cool. But if Gable and Otis are going too, then it's kind of like, weren't they just feuding? It's kind of annoying. Like I like when they
Details.
draft to other I like when they draft to other brands, but if you're just gonna have the same people going over, it's kind of annoying. But anyways, let me keep going. Dewdrop is staying on Raw.
We love Dewdrop.
Yeah, John
I
Morrison
do.
is staying on Raw. Drake Maverick is signing with Raw. Nia Jax is going to stay on Raw, so I'm assuming once she comes back from her injury, she's staying on Raw.
Mhm.
R-Truth will be staying on Raw, and finally, Zelina Vega is going to Raw from SmackDown. So, a lot of names there, and I'm pretty sure we'll get more updates at when the next draft comes on Monday. But a lot of shaking up here. So just a lot of storylines that can be done. Let's just head over to Job Has a Squadcast Facebook. We have a couple questions about the draft. Oh, I might have accidentally skipped over. Hit Row got drafted to SmackDown. So yeah, we got Hit Row on SmackDown after seeing them on NXT 2.0. A lot of people love this move. A whole bunch of other people thought they weren't ready, but at this point, it's sink or swim for them. They're going to be on the main roster at SmackDown, so we're just going to see. So I'm excited about that. So we got a question from Ben. He says, how do we feel about New Day getting split again? I can't see a reason as to why it happened. Matt, how do you feel about New Day getting split again? I know I already kind of asked
I don't really have feelings about it. I'm tired of with New Day especially, just don't tug on our heartstrings by splitting them up. Just keep them together or give them some kind of contract or explanation of why they could stay together. But they weren't together for a while already, and then they were together for a few weeks, and then they weren't. So I don't know. I don't really feel it, to be honest. It just happened so quickly that it barely felt like they were back together anyway. And the thing is, they're never truly splitting. They're always going to be the 3-person New Day unit on social media and across everything else. So
True.
It could be more dramatic than it is.
And I just want to sneak in here real quickly. They didn't post a clip of it, but during the broadcast, Roman Reigns told Paul Heyman that Paul Heyman better make sure that the Usos get drafted to SmackDown. Yeah. Which I think is a little bit of foreshadowing that maybe the Usos will get drafted to Raw. And maybe Roman Reigns will flex his muscles.
What? Oh,
it just, and maybe we'll get a switch. Like maybe we'll get New Day for the Usos. That'd be something cool. Like switch back in order to get the Usos back if they get drafted to Raw. So maybe something like that. But I thought they had to put that there for some reason. Stan on Facebook, Stan C, who was amazing.
Shout out to Stan C.
Yeah, who
of the Wrestling Podcast, the Philippines' #1 syndicated wrestling. I don't know the tagline, but they're the best.
They're the best. He asked, who are the winners and losers after night 1? So I would say winners have to be Hit Row. Sarah, after seeing Hit Row on NXT 2.0, and like we pointed out, we have a highlight of them afterwards talking about how much it means to them to get drafted. How do you feel about Hit Row coming up to the main roster to SmackDown?
Well, as a new fan, I'm all in on Hit Row. I'm all in on Hit Row. As I said before, I absolutely love them. I love their liveliness. I love their lightness. Haven't seen them wrestle. Well, I mean, I have, but not.
The rest of them.
And they are giddy.
That's right.
That's the word for them. They're absolutely giddy. They were still hitting their unison, monies and
money. Yeah.
But I think you can feel the excitement in them. And now that you're telling me it's a sort of make or break, it's a step up to the main stage, that makes complete
the main
sense
stage,
of that reaction. They're thrilled. They're the moment. I love them.
Yes, in the clip, they were just talking about how much it meant to them. AJ Francis was kind of talking about they were in Baltimore last night, which I was so devastated. I like, I wish I could have gone.
Yeah.
But AJ Francis says he like grew up around here, and so did Swerve. I know Swerve grew up somewhere in Maryland too, so it meant a
Mm.
lot for them that they got announced there in Baltimore. And AJ just talked about how much they're a family and they just love it. And I mean, I think they're the winners. They're winning here. I would also probably say that Naomi also won. We
No,
also
you would say
gotta,
that,
I
Mari?
do, because
You?
Naomi is getting what she wants. She said before, like, she's been here for a very long time. Naomi has been in the WWE for 10
Yeah.
plus years now. What she said she's missed in her career, she's been a women's champion, was that she wants a feud, like a storyline feud.
Yeah.
And when Naomi was drafted to SmackDown, Sonya Deville is the WWE official who had to announce it. And Naomi and Sonya have been going tit for tat for the last few weeks. Sonya
Yeah.
was like, well, this clearly wasn't my pick. Naomi to SmackDown. So we get Naomi in her little interview afterwards, talking about like, I don't know what Sonya Deville has against me, but I'm here on SmackDown, and basically she's gonna have to respect me. And we're getting this Naomi versus Sonya storyline. How it's gonna shake out, I'm not sure yet. But I think this is what Naomi wanted. This is a long-term storyline. This is a long-term feud that I'm very excited for. And if it gets Sonya back into the ring, yes. If it gets Naomi over, which it already seems to be doing, yes. So I think Naomi wins here. Sarah, what did you think of Naomi from her? Because we didn't see her in ring tonight. We just saw her interview backstage after she got drafted.
Well, first of all, I was intrigued because of the introduction of her draft with, well, clearly this wasn't my choice. Naomi, like, none of this, the this, the that, the other, announce of name. It was like, Naomi. So I was already intrigued, and then I saw her. I love her look. I love that green. I love her sort of confidence. It wasn't sort of brash overhyping of herself. I mean, it was within the performative sort of wrestling world, she was just saying, this is me and I'm here, and come for me if you dare, sort of thing. But it didn't seem brash. It seemed earned somehow. And now that you tell me that she's a veteran, that makes complete sense.
Yes, and she is the good guy in this feud with Sonya. Sonya is the one who's being mean and not booking her. Their feud goes back to Naomi is like, I want to get in the ring, book me against somebody, and Sonya's like, who are you? We don't have time for you.
Shade.
Yes, exactly. Very shady. So that's where this feud is going, and I'm so glad she gets to continue it on SmackDown. Matt, any winners or losers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one winner that I would add to the bunch that we talked about, Austin Theory. I think Austin Theory definitely is a winner being drafted to the main roster, just because like this is a time where we're able to see what happens with him, able to see where he fits in, where he shines. Maybe he won't go too far, or maybe he will, but I think the fact that he has the opportunity is good. He has charisma. He's not just a typical muscular person. And I do think that it's notable, if you're going to be brought up in any way, to be brought up in the draft where you are kind of elevated, like with Naomi is still going to be on SmackDown, but it's the idea that they said we need to draft this person. I see similar benefits to that with Austin Theory. I could also see him getting lost in the shuffle, but I wonder where they're going to go. But I just think the fact that he was drafted does say, like, I think the fact that he's drafted adds some gravitas to his
it does. Him being drafted versus me reading it off a phone that they did it,
exactly
on social media. However, did you forget he was already on the main roster before?
Was he though?
He was. Barely, exactly. He got lost in the shuffle the first time, and then they sent him back down to NXT to work on his charisma, and he fell in line with Johnny and Candice, and it really worked there. That's why I personally would kind of put him in the loser category because he's being ripped away from Johnny and Candice. He again has to sink or swim here. He was on Raw the last time. So we'll see. Like, to me, he's a to be determined. That's why I can't declare him a winner right now.
I think, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think he's going to be a big star on the main roster. I don't know how big, but I have a feeling just because it's so clear why they like him and why they'd be interested in him. And I think for a while they've wanted to sort of like, not to reference Arn Anderson indirectly, but like they wanted to pull the trigger on him and have him kind of shoot to the moon. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm very curious about what they're going to do with him. I can't see it flopping. When he was on the I wouldn't even consider that him being on the main roster before Mari. It was so strange. It was literally like 2 weeks, a cup of coffee, or a few weeks, a cup of coffee that he was around. He wasn't the charismatic performer, or he didn't have the chance to show his charisma then like he did now. He was just like a muscular guy who was there.
Right.
Question mark, kind of barely there.
And exactly. And just finally, one last question from Job Has a Squadcast, more like a comment from the great PJ. He asked, I apologize in advance for all of my logic questions about WWE, but they have to be said. Why does Survivor Series have to be about brand warfare? If it continues to be, why does the draft take place a month and a half before the event? Why can't WWE turn the draft into a post-Thanksgiving event and use that to build up to the Rumble and dump the December pay-per-view and let the brand settle until January? It just seems like WWE wants to do the draft. They should tweak it, and they seem too stubborn to do so. So I agree. So what PJ is saying here, we're getting the draft. It's October 2nd. We're getting the draft. Survivor Series is November 21st. And what happens in Survivor Series, it's each brand goes against each other. So the SmackDown champion goes up against the Raw champion for both the men and the women. And then they also have an elimination match from each brand. So 5 men, 5 women from SmackDown, and 5 men and 5 women from Raw have their own matches to go up against each other to say who is the superior brand. Right. But why would I care about who the superior brand is if I just got to SmackDown 5 weeks before the the actual Survivor Series? So that's what PJ is asking. And it is a great question, PJ. I agree. Why not have Survivor Series, then do the draft after Thanksgiving? Because that would make more sense. And then you might even get more tension built up because those people have been on those brands longer. They're fighting each other in the brand warfare, and then the next month they could end up on the same brand, and then you can continue their feud. It would just make so much more logical sense, which PJ points out WWE logic has lacked a lot often. So
I think that's interesting. Like the December timing of a WWE draft is interesting. I would even say April, like right after WrestleMania, could be an interesting time. That's where they've traditionally done it. That's where they've done it a lot. That's where they started doing it and did it for years. And then you have the brands able to settle in. And then by the time you get to Survivor Series in November, if things are, if you keep the brands separate and respect the brands and the fact that they are separate, then that's really interesting. So giving it more time, but I mean, same difference, because if you have it in December, then that's almost a full year where those brands are established. But you know what? It's all about the ratings. It's all about it's all about so many factors that go beyond the actual show and the stories that they're telling. So
I don't know.
Shrug?
I know, like big shrug.
Big shrug for the audio people.
Yeah, for the audio people.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we got the draft stuff out of the way. So let's go into a few of the storylines that they touched on SmackDown. Of course, we have to start with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar storyline continues. We get Roman and Paul Heyman coming out basically being like, yeah, that's right. Roman was drafted first overall. And then we get Brock Lesnar coming out, just circling the ring, waiting for Roman. It looks like they are gonna again. They're gonna fight for the Universal Championship at some point. Did they announce it yet, Matt?
They
I don't.
did. They
Did they
announced it.
announce it there?
Aren't they taking each
Is it
other on at
Crown
Crown
Jewel?
Jewel?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Crown
I'm
Jewel.
sorry. I'm trying to
Crown
get that out of
Jewel.
my head. Yeah, Crown Jewel. Yeah, but is it for the title there though?
Yeah,
It is?
sure.
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
not
who
sure.
cares?
Yeah, who cares?
No, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be for the title. They announced the match before the well, maybe it's actually it would be weird if it wasn't for the title, but they did. I remember leading into the Finn Balor Roman Reigns match on the pay-per-view on Sunday. They were saying this match between the two would
yes.
happen,
Mhm.
but it was a question of whether or not it would be for the
title.
championship.
Yep.
So maybe
You're
it's
right.
going to be for the title because why not?
Yep.
You know?
Yep. You're right. It is for the title. And so Roman and Brock, they stare at each other for a long time, which I think is what Sarah had mentioned earlier. Then they start hitting some moves on each other. Then the Usos come out, who are Roman's cousins, to try and help, but then they start getting beat up on. Really, really interesting. And then, of course, later on, just briefly mention Brock Lesnar says he's going to be a free agent, and he thanks Paul Heyman for that. Paul Heyman, who is seen there as the advocate of Roman Reigns, was actually the consultant of Roman Reigns. What has he been using for?
We
Roman?
always talk about this.
Yeah,
Wise
each time
man.
we always forget.
He's the wise
The
man.
family.
Oh yeah, the wise man
well,
that he
he's the wise man this week.
Yeah,
in his words at least.
He previously was the advocate for Brock Lesnar, so that's why it's all this mistrust now. It's like Brock Lesnar is back. Paul Heyman, whose side are you on here? Sarah, what did you think of this?
Mhm.
All of this?
I thought it was absolutely delicious. You've got these two huge men face to face, and then one of them leaves, and the cousins come in, and there's beatings, and he walks away, but somehow that's just like to be continued.
Yes.
And then sort of green room chat with this very strange little man who is the worst actor out of all those huge men who are actually quite good at all of this sort of putting across the story. He was quite odd, but I did love him. You know, I'm the wise man, and they're like, oh no, we'll be the judge of that. Yeah. I thought it was fun. I thought it was delicious. I thought there was again that that bringing in of the audience, which I'm really, really appreciating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll just point out, and this is the first time I've heard it, that the announcers, and we've talked about them a lot on this show, but they called Brock Lesnar the suplexorcist.
Did they?
The suplexorcist.
Did Pat come up with that? I didn't hear that.
I don't know who came up with it, but it's a choice, and I don't know if it's the suplexorcist. It kind of please welcome to the ring. The suplexorcist. It's a mouthful, actually.
And I think if you have to think about it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like
and then you have to think about it after, like,
deconstruct
get
it.
it?
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like I mean I liked everything about it. Brock and Roman they have a history of working really well against each other. Who wins this? I don't know. I really want of course I will never want Roman's reign to come to an end. He's been the champ for over 400 days, more than a year now. But I wonder if Paul is going to get involved here in any way. Like, will Paul turn on Roman? Or will Paul try to prove his loyalty to Roman by, costing Brock the title? Like, I'm really interested to see where they go here. Like, this is such a good storyline that they're building. So I'm definitely intrigued. I mean, they're two of the baddest men on the planet for WWE. They're the two biggest draws. So, of course, you want to see it. Again, I am trying to find a way that I can do it without supporting that Blood Money pay-per-view. But we'll see. We will definitely see.
So many questions.
So many questions.
But I think one thing that was interesting about some of this is just like the situation that Paul Heyman is in just seems like an impossible one. Like, what kind of question is it from Roman? Are you good friends with Brock Lesnar? Like, they were like this. They're closer than friends. They have been. So what an interesting story to see play out. But I just wonder when things will kind of blow up, because they haven't blown up, where Brock Lesnar is still, with Roman. Doesn't seem like it could stay that way unless no clue where this is going to go. But I feel like it's getting messier, and we love mess.
Yes, we do.
That's what makes it so intriguing. You just don't know. Well, you don't know.
Exactly.
I didn't know it was intriguing because of that, but now that you're telling me you don't know where it's going, I think it's even more intriguing.
Ooh.
Yeah, because you really don't. And then, the stories the match is predetermined, but they're predetermined to tell the story. And so if you build the proper story, you guys see how it ends. And sometimes it's just not so obvious, right? So we have Bianca versus Sasha. They got their WrestleMania rematch finally. Bianca and Sasha were supposed to fight over the SmackDown Women's Championship at SummerSlam, but Sasha was pulled from the match. Becky Lynch stepped in, and nefariously took Bianca's championship away from her. So, Sarah, if you were wondering, Becky Lynch is the one who was on commentary the whole time, who is the current SmackDown Women's Champion, and Bianca and Becky were having another championship match when Sasha Banks, the one who has blue hair, came in and interrupted the match at Extreme Rules, costing Bianca the championship. So Bianca and Sasha were having their match tonight with Becky on commentary, who was hilarious on commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And Becky ended up intervening, giving Sasha the win here.
Yes.
Only for Charlotte Flair to interfere.
Well, I mean, I think it's worth noting how amazing the way that she intervened was. Like, very tactfully kind of like leaning on Bianca's hair, and I thought that was brilliant because the ref like was looking and yet could not see it.
And what was happening. Yeah.
And kudos to Becky for wearing that fluffy jacket that could kind of hide the hair in it.
Everything. Yes.
Creative. Yes, it's really creative.
It can I just say real quick though, like this about Bianca and Sasha really do have really great chemistry together. It's the first time they've wrestled each other in a few months, because they didn't even wrestle when Sasha came back the first time. But anyways, since WrestleMania. So they did a good job here. Very entertaining match. At one point, again, Bianca ended up on the outside jaw jacking with Becky Lynch. So much so that Becky Lynch got involved by using Bianca's hair against her in order for Sasha to get the win.
It was such
Sarah, what did you think of this?
Yeah. I loved it. And again, I mean, it's illuminating when you tell me all that backstory. But even without that, like, I got it. There she is in her green fur with the tinted glasses, doing the commentary. The wrestling itself was fantastic. I wrote down just fabulous women flying all over the place. That was my review of that match. So you see what experience and finesse can give you in a match.
Exactly.
And then when people get brought in from the sidelines, that's a part of wrestling I'm learning to love. And then the hair move, and I thought it was fantastic.
This is what I mean by this is the level that those women in NXT have to get up to, because Sasha Banks eventually, not to rush them.
They're best.
These are the best of the best. This Sasha Banks is one of those women's wrestlers who can really wrestle anybody. Bianca Belair, I mean, wow, she could the amount of growth that she has had, because she's only been wrestling since 2017, I want to say it was as well. But I mean, she is just a star. She's already been the women's champion, and she's just so good. You saw her lifting Sasha every which way. It is throwing her around. Becky Lynch, one of the best women on the mic. Not only that, one of the best technical women's wrestlers of all. Really good at mat wrestling.
Becky could wrestle a broomstick if she wanted to.
Exactly. And then
or
Charlotte.
a bear, or a bear cat.
Did you hear me, Matt? and then we had Charlotte.
Oh.
No. Then Charlotte Flair for some. Oh, I would have been pissed. She still had her heels on. Oh,
she put her heel
her
right
in Sasha's face,
which is gross. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Gross.
I don't know if I would. There was one time on the podcast where we were talking about Charlotte putting her barefoot in someone's face, booting them in the face. I don't know which is preferable.
I would much rather your bare feet. The nasty
Sarah, would you rather
heel?
Have Charlotte boot you with her barefoot or with the heel on?
Does she have to boot me?
Yes.
No.
Okay. In that case, bear. It's a bare night. It's a barefoot. I worry about the match, the integrity of the match if you get on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's probably not great for the.
So again, Charlotte is the Raw Women's Champion who has been drafted to SmackDown. So at Crown Jewel, there will be a SmackDown Women's Championship match between Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and Sasha Banks. So depending on who wins that match, I wonder if they go to Raw, because they've done this before. Whenever a brand takes another brand's champion, normally the other champion, they just switch, they just switch the belts and then they go on about their day. So I guess we'll see. I guess that just means whoever goes to Crown Jewel. We'll see on Monday on Raw when whoever gets drafted. Like again, Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch still have to be drafted. So we'll see where win. Right. So we'll see where it goes. I want Bianca to have her title back. I want Bianca to be the women's champion on Raw personally. But
that'd be a great story.
But it's so crazy. Yeah, it's an awesome story because Sarah, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, who came in at the end there, and Becky Lynch are part of a group called the Four Horsewomen, along with a women's wrestler named Bayley, who is currently out. She's currently out injured, and they are considered like the standard. They are the best women wrestlers in WWE, in wrestling as a whole. Some people will debate. The four of them are so good. And Bianca, like I said, came up after them. And the fact that she's in this title picture with three of them, she's feuded with all four of them. She's really feuded with all four of them, and she's hung in there. So she's the first of the new era of women to really hang in there with the four of them. So it's such a great spot to put her in. She was also, like we said, she was drafted in the first round. She was the first non-champion drafted in the first round. Like, they have so much faith in her.
I forgot she wasn't champion when I saw she was drafted.
She wasn't champion, and she was drafted in the first round. And the rumor is during the Olympics, she was on the Peacock app doing a little bit of Olympic coverage. Peacock is owned by NBC Universal, and so is USA Network, where Raw is broadcast. So they're saying if she goes to Raw, it's looking like maybe USA will feature her in maybe more prominent roles within the NBC Universal family. So
I want Bianca in the Olympics. That's what I want. And four more years. Yeah. That's all it takes. And you know what? She is the EST of WWE. So she's the fastest, strongest, toughest. Let's get her in track and field. Let's get her anything. Give her anything. Skeet shooting. That she could do that. She'll be great. Yeah, we want it. Let's campaign for that, Mari. That'll be our our new thing.
This is the women's wrestling that we love to watch, and I'm so, again, I really want to see that match. So I'm so upset that they're putting it on that pay-per-view. So
just we'll find a way.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah.
Stick to your feathers. Sorry,
we're not watching it. We'll figure some. If anyone has any creative ideas for how we'll take in this match, maybe we'll just go to WWE.com and then also read through like the play-by-play of what happened in the match.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, it's like, I think one great point is I've never watched those shows live and in real time, and I don't think I've ever like watched a full one of the Saudi shows, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. People, let us know what you think or not. We'll figure out though.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh. So,
by the way, I'll say for the YouTube people, just the closing visual.
Oh yeah, it closed
Becky
with
and
Becky
Charlotte
and Charlotte
holding the championships. I hope that's not what we're getting soon, but we'll see.
We shall see. So we also finally we the final thing we're going to talk about from SmackDown. Edge comes out. Edge has been gone for a few weeks. Seth Rollins put him away with 2 curb stomps to the back of the neck, and Edge got hauled away in an ambulance. But then Seth Rollins has been for weeks calling Edge out to telling Edge he needs to tell everybody that he is retired and that Seth Rollins is better than him, and that Seth Rollins was the one who put him out to pasture. Edge, of course, was drafted, so he came out. He told Seth Rollins basically, I'm gonna get you, whatever. But the biggest thing was, we go to the Titantron. Seth Rollins is cackling in front of a house. And
I love his cackle. It's horrible.
It is good. It is a good bad guy cackle. And he slowly reveals that he's at a house that says Copeland in front of it. And so he breaks into Edge and Beth Phoenix, who is a former women's wrestler, who is the NXT. She was the NXT commentary. She's on the NXT commentary team. He breaks into their house, walks around their house, basically just straight up disrespects their space. He opens the refrigerator. He grabbed an orange juice and an apple, and somebody on Twitter was like, eating an apple while drinking orange juice is a maniac behavior. He left the fridge open.
So he ate the apple with the sticker still on it.
Did he?
Yeah.
He commented on their art. He might as well put his boots on the couch. There was nobody there, but it was really, really funny. Sarah, what did you think about this segment?
I did not know what was going on, but I was there for the ride. Yes, he drank the orange juice orange juice from the bottle, and the audience went mad about that. I was more mad about the sticker still being on the apple, and the fridge door was still open.
The fridge door was open. That's what really irked me.
Oh, that's horrible.
And then he said the children's art was trash, and then it was fantastic. And what that house was so ugly, I could barely look at it.
I couldn't tell. I was like,
there is no way that's their actual home. No, it was staged. There's no way that's their home, because if you look at the refrigerator, no, there's no way that was their real home. I mean, it was a big house, so maybe, but it wasn't. They didn't have enough like family decor unless they just moved there.
I was about to say, I think the art was real though. I do think that they brought the kids' art and the kids.
Yeah, well, maybe, but you know what? That I wouldn't be surprised, because that was some very well done art, and those kids have careers in art rather than in pro wrestling.
Could you imagine being like in the back? You're like the stagehand, and they're like, "We need you to create us some kids' art." Like what?
Making what? Oh, I thought you. I just imagine you, the stagehand telling the kids that make some
Oh,
origami that I could put up.
that'd be even
Do
funnier.
it.
And just
Yeah,
like,
deadline. We have to
"Do
get to the
it."
house. No, I don't think that's their actual home, though, for a variety of reasons.
It
Mostly
didn't look
just for
like
security
It
reasons.
didn't look like anybody's actual home. I
No,
hadn't
Exactly.
believed that anybody actually lived there. But one of the commentators at one point, when he goes into the sort of the den, he said he has books.
He probably reads his books in that chair.
Yeah.
And this made me I found a list from WWE.com of like the home invasions across the from the past, and I just had to I had to send it to Sarah just to give her a just a context of previous home invasion storylines, because the whole time I was thinking like Seth Rollins is in there, I was like, this is great, because Attitude Era, this is not how it used to go. When back in the day, unfortunately, the infamous Stone Cold Steve Austin outside of Brian Pillman's house, what they didn't show, Sarah, because they've taken it off the air. When Stone Cold was outside of Brian Pillman's house, he ended up breaking into Brian Pillman's house with Brian Pillman still there with his wife on a broken leg. And when Stone Cold busts in, Brian Pillman pulls a gun and pulls it on Stone Cold. And I was back in like 2001, 2002, something like that. And they've since taken it, removed it. We also got it's kind of funny because Edge did this to John Cena. Edge went to John Cena's house and disrespected John Cena's dad. We got the Hart family dungeon. We got like Ric Flair's house was invaded at one point. Like they used to love going to people's houses, and they used to love going to people's houses and messing with people's family. So at least I was like, I'm glad Beth and the girls weren't there.
Yeah, and then, I wish they were there, because Beth would have beat him up in a heartbeat. But
I was looking forward to that. I thought, wouldn't it be great if the wife's home and beats him up? But I mean, compared to that top 10, which someone was quite violent, like axing doors down and women screaming, I wasn't so hot on that. This one, there was no one home. It's again, it's bravado, it's opening fridges, it's eating apples incorrectly. So it's disrespectful, but it's enjoyable disrespect rather than I'm glad we didn't see a gun being pulled, but axing down doors and women screaming and elderly men being punched in the face. It wasn't really for me. It's not my wrestling. I'm a rabid fan now. I've been a fan for 24 hours, and now I know exactly how wrestling should go.
There's a line. Yeah, there's a line. I immediately was brought back to Kyland and on Big Brother 23 as I was watching this, just like the level of making it personal and messing with someone's family, which like they love to do in wrestling. I don't think they said the kids' names, did they?
I can't remember.
Which I mean, if not, great. Leave them truly out of it. Like, we don't need to have their actual house or their actual kids. That was an interesting little Airbnb. It was an ugly house. I just want to go back to that. I don't think it's a real.
I think it's a set.
I think it's soundstage. Yeah,
ugly, and it also didn't make sense. Like as a piece of architecture. There was a photograph of him with the wife and kids, and I did actually flash and thought, I wonder if those are his real children.
I'm pretty sure I think that was real. I think the photos were real, but I agree, I don't think that was really their house or whatnot. So that wraps up the highlights of the week. The highlights can be found the highlights can be found in our show notes and descriptions, everything that we've talked about. It's been a wild ride. This is like such a jam-packed week in wrestling. Like it's so hard. It's our first week back at this time slot, so we're going long, guys. Sorry. But we'll be back to play a game here.
Ooh.
All right. So this one's gonna be hard because we haven't done this in a while. So
no, this is easy,
I'm a little
Mari.
rusty. I'm a little rusty to be.
You're tired of it'll come back to you. You're a winner. So but Mari, just so you know, Sarah, I'm typically the one who does according to the listeners,
Explain the rules first, Matt.
a better job at this game, which we're about to play,
Sure.
which is called
Game!
Create a RHAPsler. It's a game. It's fun. It's about you. And we're going to create a RHAPsler, a wrestling character for you, so that you could go and be a wrestler who hopefully doesn't have to deal with most of the things that we talked about today. But so the rules are, Mari and I will have a very limited amount of time, a couple of minutes, and we'll each pitch to you a wrestling character. We'll give you a wrestling name potentially, or use your real name. We will give you a finishing move as your finisher. We'll give you your entrance. We'll just describe the character. Your outfit as well is a very important part.
Very
and
important.
you know, we'll each explain to you. You don't react. You don't tell us what you think as we each pitch the character. After Mari and I have both gone, you could tell us who the winner is, which RHAPsler you would rather be, the one that I pitch, which will,
Yeah.
the one I pitch,
Okay, come on.
or the one that Mari tries to pull together.
And we have 3 minutes. I'm typing up the online timer because we got to move it along.
Mari, just
for
we
some
can
people.
start going. I have the timer pulled up, and
Well,
but
you got to go
ready.
first.
I have to go first.
Yeah, it's your turn. I'm pretty sure I went first the last time.
Well, you know what? I'm ready because this whole 3 hours, I've had the inspiration needed. So, Mari, just let me know when the time starts.
All right, ready?
Because
go.
Born ready. So, Sarah, here's the thing. When it comes to you, I did my research. I'm big on the research for these characters. I really feel like it needs to be something that exudes who you are. And I know that one of the things that you are, one of the things you bring is an overt theatricality, which I want to bring into your character. And so I'm just going to cut right to the chase. You're not gonna be Sarah Carradine with this. I think your name is powerful, but I would like your name to be Barb, and I want you just to be Barb. Okay. One name, Barb.
Just Barb, okay.
Barb, yes. Because it's a reference to the theater, but also a reference to this barbaric nature that you bring. And I picture your character being dynamic and having a duality to it, where you have this articulate nature that you're able to bring. You have this basically it's you in one sense when you're not in the ring, but I do see a transformation into this barbaric character when you're in the ring. So what I picture you wearing, not too far off from what you might wear, but kind of turning it up a little bit, is something a little bit more Shakespearean. We need to give you like a little hat, a little type of like ascot scarf. And we want to make you picture a film critic almost, or a director in a theater. That's what I picture for you visually, because we want to be very clear and communicate the message of who you are overtly in what you're wearing. I do picture you wearing black, though, in some more muted tones, because your character, once you get in the ring, while outside the ring, people see your brain, they see your words. When you're in the ring, it's pure brutality. That's you. Your finishing move will be a headbutt using your brain very literally to take out the competition. And I picture you being calm, cool, collected outside the ring. But Barb, the barbarian, well, we're not going to call you the barbarian, but like the barbaric nature will come through. You could have a last name if you want. I feel like the alliteration might be nice. So maybe it's like Barb Beck or Barb something. We'll give you name, but I think like a four letters on each is nice. Just that symmetry of your name would be really nice. And I think that's mostly it. I think that's basically it. But I just picture you being able to sort of dominate the competition physically in the ring in a very short order, but even more, you're able to engage with the fans and get them to react to your words and rile them up with your words. So I could see you being more of a bad guy at first, but transitioning into a face character at the end of the day. That's my story. Mari, please give your character before we hear from Sarah. before
you,
we hear your reactions, of course.
Thank you.
Okay. So let start my timer, Matt.
Timer started.
So I've imagined for you a character. I want your name to be Lillian Swan. And I want you to be an old school, like opera diva character, like complete like dress where it's like lace and big dress, opera gloves. You know, you come down to the ring. I don't know if you can sing or not. I have no clue, but it doesn't matter because the gimmick, the gimmick works if you can sing or not. We've had kind of like Aiden English did he did a character called the Drama King where he came in and he sang in the ring, and I want it to be like that. You come, you sing in the ring. If somebody comes and tells you to shut up, then you start fighting because of that. And I just see it. I see the opera gloves. I see like maybe the feather. I can see you insulting people at like a high register. I think your finisher. I thought Matt did a great job with headbutt finisher because I was thinking something similar in that vein. But I would love a good a hammer, like just a burning hammer finisher. So just a jumping, like maybe just from the middle rope, something just like really small, or the lower rope, and you just like hammer to the
double,
to the
like a double axe handle.
Yes, thank you. Double axe handle is the move, and you just hit them on the head, shoulder area, and then they go down. And that's your finisher. And then after each match, you sing for your celebration that you won. And I think it can work either way. I think, again, depending on your singing skill and singing ability, you can either be a face and start off as face, and then when the time comes, heal it up. Try and steal the spotlight. Ooh, that's another thing. You have to insist that the spotlight is on you. Like you always have to be like, lighting, guys, lighting. And then they cut the lighting, light is on you, has to be on you until you're in the ring. And that could be like your entrance and stuff like that. So I think that's it. I'm good. I think I've covered everything. And again, Lillian.
What's the name?
Again, Lillian Swan.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I just want to point out that in my scenario, it was implied that you would be well lit. So,
okay. Anyway,
but you didn't say it, Matt. You didn't say it.
Wow.
First tell us the things you liked and maybe didn't like of each.
I will.
And then let us know who you picked.
Let us know who you picked.
That's certainly an incredibly good start. Barb, brilliant.
Barb, yeah.
Barb is such a brilliant. I like the single name.
Yeah.
Like a share.
Yeah.
It's my mother's name was Barbara. She wasn't a Barb.
Oh, nice.
I share that with Bryce.
Did Matt know that?
I know. Well, not about you. No, I know about Bryce. Bryce's Barb.
Bryce's Barb.
Yeah.
So I always feel when Barb says, "I love you," I think, yeah, she's talking to me. I like the idea of the director outfit. I see that old-fashioned 20s with the jodhpurs and all of that.
Yeah.
So you had me. Murray, Lillian Swan, I thought it was meh. And then you built and you built and you built. I love the story of either singing badly or singing well, and that being the source of the conflict. Mm-hmm. You were neck and neck, and then the spotlight.
No, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I can't.
Give it to me, Sarah.
I can't. You have the
idea of that extra interaction that Murray particularly gave with the lighting guys, so that then that could become another whole thing, another layer. I'm going.
No,
Lillian Swan.
Don't do it. Don't do
it.
Don't do it. No.
Yes.
No. You think that hold the phone,
you,
Sarah, Barb, because here's what I'll say. I would never have a wrestling company that would not have the proper lighting on you. My lighting crews
Too
would
late.
100%
Too
be prepared. They'd be
late.
ready. You wouldn't have to put in the extra work of directing them.
Matt, it's okay. It's okay.
In Mari's scenario,
It is okay.
you have to do more work.
You were so close. You
have to sing
close.
too. We'd have
So
recordings.
This close, and I just inched you out at the last second.
It
with
really
my
was the very
brilliant-
last second.
This
I
is a
believe that I would have
conspiracy.
lighting from you, that it was that layer of my relationship with the lighting guys, one of whom may fall into the ring at some point, and I might have to speak.
Yeah, well, I would love
but
to
I
see
also-
Mari figure out the technical setup of the lighting because
No.
she doesn't
Sounds
have
salty.
And I love
I am
the idea of flying off a rope too. So
I
it
do
does
like
go
that
to
for
Murray,
you.
but only just
slightly. Like, we don't
But what
want
about
you
the
to make your
dress?
pretty little voice. Like, just slightly.
The lace dress.
Like,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
You like the
No,
flow
see,
of
that's
it
why
when
she's
you're flying off stuff?
Murray started on the and then just
I just go,
Yeah,
no.
it was little.
Yeah.
It was. I agree. It
I mean,
was
you can
little
always-
weak at the
strong,
start, but
but-
she did finish strong with the stop.
We can
finish it.
always the attire. It's just.
I would like for Mari to have the win here, so I will also vote for Mari.
Oh, okay.
And Mari,
Okay.
you win this one.
Thank you.
Lillian
win.
Swan. I
Thank
have
you
to write that
so
down.
much, Sarah, for
Yeah,
playing
thank you so
creator
much.
But thank you
RHAPup for us.
both for the way that you see me. That was quite the treat. To everyone listening and watching, I recommend that you get two people to tell you how they see you as a wrestler. It's extraordinary.
It's fun.
Tweet
right?
us, and we'll plug ourselves in a second. But tweet us, and we'll let you know what your RHAPsler will be, and then you could decide whose you would rather choose.
Anyways, before we move on, because Matt is still trying. Before we move on,
no.
just tell us a little bit, Sarah, about like what was probably your main takeaway from the highlights this week of all the stuff that you've seen, and just tell us what you got from this experience with us.
Well, I would say the layered nature was something that took me by surprise. Wrestling isn't just one thing; it's many things. So I loved that. Seeing wrestlers wrestle really well is beautiful. You know, it's too much to say it's a dance, because I don't think it's a dance, but it's the coordination when you've got two people flying through ropes together. The relationship of the people laying their hands on each other and trusting each other. That was actually quite moving. I didn't expect to be moved by it, but I was, just by their grace and their ability, really. And it's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. And at its best, it kind of has room for the audience. And so I really appreciated excuse me. Sorry about my voice. I really appreciated seeing that big audience there and realizing that they, like the audience of a theatrical production, are part of the show as well, and they feel themselves to have ownership of it. So that's my kind of big takeaways. Yeah, and I've got a new people to follow.
Yeah,
Shayna and my wonderful hit row. Yeah.
Yes, Hit Row and Shayna. That's awesome. Yeah, and being a theater director, I think you get it. Like, it's easier for you to understand the nuance and the talent it takes to recite basically a script in front of a live audience while also hitting people in the right way.
But even more too, and I think that's something that we touched on a lot early on. It's just like all of the elements, like even just the visuals and the lighting and the levels that we're seeing to like where things are situated, the camera work, the production, all of it is some stuff that you could appreciate. And hopefully people who are listening in, whether they're new fans or casual fans or diehard fans, could have that extra appreciation for those things leaving this podcast. So thank you for really celebrating the art of wrestling. That's what it's kind of been that's what's felt like over the course of this 3.5 hours that you've graced us with at a probably not opportune time of day, but hey, that's what
it made it more special. No, thank you so much for asking me. I'm really absolutely delighted, and I love learning about other people's passions and to share in some small way. So thank you both very much.
Awesome. Sarah, can you tell the people where they can find you? Plugs.
Yes, they can find me on Twitter at Sarah Carradine.
Yeah, and are there things that you're up to, podcasts that you're on or supporting, or anything that you want to shout out and mention?
Yes, I've got a few things coming up, but I was on this really great wrestling podcast, which was very unexpected.
Weird.
Over on post-show recaps, I did a recap of the Outer Banks with Asia Welsh and Mary Kwiatkowski. So if you have teens or you're that way inclined, you like adventure, it's a great recommendation that we did. And I did an episode of Community. But some other kind of interesting things coming up. So keep your ears open and you'll hear some things. Yeah.
Okay.
What about you guys? Where can we find you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, you could find me at Matt Scott GW on Twitter. You could also follow me on Stereo, because Mari and I like to pop up there and do some recaps of WWE pay-per-views. So you could follow us there, and no one will be there and be part of our podcast by submitting audio voicemails if you'd like. And yeah, I'm on the Wrestling RHAPup. It's like this podcast thing. I don't know if anyone who's listening's ever heard of it, especially to this point. Seriously, thank you so much for listening in this deep. We just finished the Big Brother season, so no more recapping that. Survivor's on, so there should be some stuff coming out there on that side of things that'll be exciting. And otherwise, I am really finishing up podcasting about Black Widow Brigade, which is a fun little show / game on YouTube created by Alex Gardner, who is the creator of Survivor Philadelphia and Survivor Philadelphia 2, which is coming out at some point. And yeah, I am just really all over the place, but I'll be there mainly with LaTanya Starks and Grace Leader, and maybe some other guests. Who knows? But that's kind of what I'm up to. Sarah and I have talked about what we're up to, but Mari, we haven't heard what you're up to. Where could the people find you?
The people can find me on Twitter and Stereo at Mari Talks Too Much. That's 2 like the number 2. You can find me every week, just like Matt, here on the Wrestling RHAPup podcast, either on the Rob Has a Podcast YouTube page or in the Wrestling RHAPup podcast feed. You can also catch me. I was on the 90 Day Fiance podcast this past week with Puya, talking about the messy couples over there. I also had the pleasure of being a guest co-host with Amy for the Bachelor in Paradise podcast that just dropped this morning. We talked about a very long episode that, like in the immortal words of Chappelle, it could have been an email. It was a 3-hour episode for no reason for Bachelor in Paradise that we really trimmed the fat on. So go check that out. Don't subject yourself to the full 3 hours. Just go listen to us. And then finally, like I said up top, I will be on the Survivor 41 patron Q&A this Monday. So again, this is a great time to go to www.patreon.com/RHAP to sign up to be a patron and get access to that exclusive patron Q&A where the patrons can actually call in and ask Rob and I questions about Survivor 41 episode 2. So that's going to be fun. I'm excited about that. But that's it.
Wow.
Any final words before we get out of here? Either of you? No?
Tap doesn't matter if you don't respect it.
There you go.
That's
and
right.
Also, watch out for any flying elbows.
Yeah, that's our line at the end.
That's our line. Bye-bye.
Bye.